Welcome to the What Bitcoin Did podcast.
Hi there from San Francisco. How are you all? I imagine you're all feeling pretty great with Bitcoin on a rampage this week. Apologies, I'm a bit croaky. We had the What Beer Did party last night. I was up quite late singing Bon Jovi songs with Stefan Rivera. But welcome to the What Bitcoin Did podcast, which is brought to you by Kraken, the best place to buy, sell and trade digital currencies. I'm your host, Peter McCormack, and today I've got an absolutely fascinating interview with Charlie Shrem. But before that, I've got a message from my show sponsors. So first up, Dropbit, without doubt the best mobile Bitcoin wallet in the App Store. I've also been hanging with the guys in San Francisco for the last couple of days at the Bitcoin 2019 conference. They also sponsored my party last night, so look, a massive thanks to them for that. And yeah, have you downloaded it yet? Have you played with it? I know a bunch of you have because I've seen it on Twitter. It's an amazing app. You definitely need to check it out. And they also just announced that you can now send Bitcoin to Twitter handles, and I'm running a little competition on Twitter for that at the moment. But it's just an amazing app. It's super easy to use. It's got amazing UX, and it's basically like a Venmo for Bitcoin. They've made it super easy to send and receive Bitcoin. So you definitely want to check it out, and it's available on iPhone and Android. Just head over to dropbit.app, which is DROPBIT.app. Also, accounting, highly relevant now. Again, with the big Bitcoin rampage this week, if you're making gains and you want to get your tax affairs in order, there's nothing better than accounting. They're not only a tax calculation tool, they've got an amazing portfolio tracking solution as well, and you only pay at the point you want to download your tax report. They've updated the website, they've updated the tool, the UX amazing, it's so easy to connect your exchanges and your wallet providers, and they also make sure you sell the right coins at the right time to reduce your tax burden. Accounting is an absolute no-brainer for anyone who wants to have their crypto tax affairs in order. Check it out at accounting.com, which is ACCOINTING.com. Anyway, onto the show, and this is now down as one of my favorite interviews I've recorded. I know I say that all the time. It just is, though. Charlie invited me out to Florida for a couple of days. I stayed with him at his house, with him, his wife, and his crazy, energetic dog. He took me out on his boat. They took me out to dinner. They took me out to meet all their friends and their family. I just got to spend a couple of days with him, learning about him and finding about him as a person. And it emphasized why I like doing these in person, why I like meeting people and getting to know them first, because it changed the interview. Charlie's wife, Courtney, sat with us through the interview, and I realized that the story wasn't just about him. It was about her as well. So there's part of the show where I introduce her and ask her a few questions because I wanted to find out about the impact of his imprisonment on her as well. And that got quite emotional, but yeah, it was just really important to spend the time with them, because without that, if this had just been a Skype interview, it would have been a very, very different interview. And Charlie's a proper OG. He's been around for ages, and we get into all kinds of things in this interview. And we actually ended up recording it over 2 days. We were recording for so long, we actually had to split it. But what I thought was great was that even after spending 18 months in prison and now finally coming to the end of his 3 years on parole, Charlie seems to be in a genuinely good place. He isn't resentful of the situation that he found himself in, and actually thinks the prison system has made him into a better person. We discussed a bunch of other things over those 2 days as well, from Charlie's early life and discovering Bitcoin to starting BitInstant, to the Winklevoss twins, Roger Ver, and how he's given away hundreds, maybe even thousands of Bitcoin. And then, of course, we get very deep in what happened with his arrest, court case and imprisonment, what it was like for him to walk into prison the first time, why he shouldn't eat a Snickers that was left on his pillow, institutionalization, rehabilitation. Yeah, we get into a lot. It's a really long podcast, but it's really interesting. And, you know, I always want to hear what you think about it. So please do get in touch. Please do feel free to drop me an email on hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Let me know what you think. Also, I'm about to just jump on a flight to LA. I'm going down there to record another couple of interviews. Then I'm off to Boulder to record quite a special show with Jack Mallers, his family, and Eric Voorhees. It's going to be a load of fun. And also just had the last 2 days at the Bitcoin 2019 conference where I emceed alongside Naomi Brockwell. Met so many people, friends, foes, trolls. And yeah, it's great to have all these Bitcoiners in one place at the same time. And I've got to give a big shout out to David Bailey and the team at Bitcoin Magazine, because they did an amazing job. Anyway, I've talked for far too long on this intro. Listen, if you're enjoying this, you want to support the show, head over to my website. It's whatbitcoindid.com. Click on the support section. That'll tell you everything you can do. And yeah, if you want to get in touch, you know you can email me. My email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com.
What was the kicker? Why did you decide to start doing a podcast?
I've always wanted to do one for a long time. Are you getting his squeaking and stuff?
We probably are getting it squeaking, but we don't mind.
You are.
It's a family show, so you wanted to do one for a while.
I want to do it for a while, but I want to make sure it was done professionally, and I needed help making sure, like, from the concept of the show, the conceptual, the concept of Untold Stories, I've wanted to do for a long time, but I didn't know how to take it and make sure I did it the right way. I didn't want to half-ass the show. A lot of people have half-assed podcasts. They've released one, it got like 10 downloads, and then they've done it just like they've edited it themselves and they've written show notes themselves. And people don't realize that a podcast is a full-on production. You have sound engineers, you have sound engineers, I have a copywriter, I have an editor, you have transcription, you have to come up with the format for the show, the design of the show, you have to choose which one they're going to be released next week. Then there's the marketing, distribution, advertisement, sales. You do a lot of that yourself.
I did everything to begin with.
You did everything to begin
Well,
with.
no. So when I first started, Bitcoin 20K. I had a bit of money. I hadn't blown my Bitcoin,
Okay.
and I had an engineer, and that was it. And then as the price dropped and I ran out of money, I figured out how to do the engineering myself. And so up until about 2 months ago, there's about a year where I did everything. I wrote the show notes, I prepared the interview, I booked the interview, I did the interview, I engineered it, I published it, I did the marketing.
Wow.
But that was cool because I had control of everything.
You've learned, and you can become your own podcast network and bring shows to life. Eventually have other people who want to do shows. You can do everything. Let them pay you to produce their shows. You can become a producer if you wanted to. Kind of like what Blockworks does with me.
Yeah.
I like working with Blockworks because they were able to really take what was in my brain and put it down onto paper, which was very difficult. Just creating the whole concept of the show and giving me a lot of direction, because you see now, and my listeners of Untold Stories now see all the good stuff. But along the ride, I had some really stupid ideas that those guys had to basically tell me, Charlie, that we're not doing that. And I would have done that.
How many shows have you done now?
I've released, I think, 8 or 9, only 8 or 9 episodes, and I'm getting about 2,000 downloads per episode now.
What have you learned in doing it? Because you do your first show, and you're like, crap, how do I do this?
You gotta use honey because your voice goes.
Yeah.
I call my wife and I complain. I'm like, I don't have a voice. I have a little mixer in my studio, and I'm constantly putting myself on mute and just clearing my throat because I talk a lot. You talk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've learned that. But what else have I learned? I've learned that people like talking, and I've learned that I like talking, and I've learned that because I don't really give a shit whether people like the idea of my show or not, I'm funding the show myself. And this is an idea that I've wanted to do, and I gauge success by, did I try? If I tried to do it and it failed, at least I can say, all right, I tried it. And that's what I want to do. I wanted to try it. But you know what the definition of a professional is? The definition of a professional is someone who believes that if you're going to do something, you have to do it the best way possible. So that's what a professional is. So I'm not going to say I'm a professional anything. I play tennis. We play tennis a few days a week. We're not professional tennis players because we're not amazing at it yet. But we believe that doing it right is the best way, like amateur hour at the Apollo or whatever it is,
Yeah, I don't think people always understand how much work goes into something like this. I at least do 70 hours a week for both episodes when you consider everything, the prep, the engineering, the show notes, the pub. I mean, getting a show live is half a day of work.
Yeah.
Just getting it live, doing the marketing, and also trying to construct it like a business that has the right level of income so I can travel and do these interviews in person. Because this right now is going to be an infinitely better interview than if I did it over Skype.
I agree. I've only done one episode in person, and I'm happy I did it not with a big guest because I was a little nervous. When you're interviewing someone online, you can look at your phone, you can look away, you can put yourself on mute, go take a piss.
Mm-hmm.
They'll keep talking and talking and talking. When you're doing it in person, you got to sit here and you got to communicate and you got to look and you're having a conversation, and it's a very different type of interview. I would almost say that there are some people that if they were here in Sarasota with me, I would say, hey, let's go in opposite rooms. I don't want to interview in person. I want to do it over separate rooms because I feel like it's a different type of interview.
Well, I tell you why I prefer to do it in person. There's a couple of reasons. You
get to know the person.
Well, yeah, but you have the whole body kind of actions and what they're doing, so you can get a feel for them. You've got the full peripheral vision, whereas in a Skype window, you don't have that.
Yeah,
the
true.
second reason you do get to know them. So, we hung out last night, we've hung out today. I know you.
Today was such a crazy day.
Well, yeah. But I know you now a lot more for the last 24 hours than I would if, say, I'd done the research online and prepared a list of questions. And also another thing I started doing, I do it rarely, but 1 in every 5 shows now, I do it without any questions prepared. Because I know the kind of guest it is and the kind of conversation I want to have. So,
It's an
like,
interesting point, but don't you think that because you got to know me, if you had done your research online about me, there's a persona that's been created about me, good and bad, and that would have led your interview, or the conversation. That would have been one type of interview.
Mhm.
Now that you've gotten to know me, it's a different type of interview. I think it'll be a better interview, but it's a different type of interview. And I'm like you, my research, so that's another thing people don't realize, is that you have to do research.
Of course, yeah.
You got to be a good talk. Not everyone can do a podcast. You have to be able to control and follow and lead a conversation and allow the person to talk about something that you want, like a theme of the show. So I don't do the research anymore like you, but what I do is I want to know a little bit of background on the person, and I try to answer myself, what makes this person tick? What drives them? It's hard to find that on the internet. Sometimes people have spoken about that already.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really it. And then topic-wise, what I do is I plan my first question. My first question is like a totally left curveball question.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so if you listen to my shows, untoldstories.com, you'll notice the first question throws everyone off because they're not expecting it. So my first question could be anything from, so why'd you name your dog that? And I was like, why are you asking me about why I named my dog that? But it just kind of like throws it off and gets people a little more comfortable.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about something like that. I don't know.
No, but I get that. So I do something similar, but usually I try and find some kind of common ground.
Okay.
So yesterday when I interviewed Brian Quintens at the CFTC, it turns out his son has the same name as my son. So, I have that as like as an introduction. And,
Sure.
And then from that, I find out the history of his family. And you get that, you kind of break the ice. You disarm the guest so you can get a better conversation. But also there are 2 types of interviews. There is an interview, right? So
Sure.
Brian Quintens at the CFTC, that's an interview.
It's an interview. It's not a conversation.
Yeah, that's an interview. You work at the CFTC. You have a role within the industry that people have specific things they want to know about and they want to know how you operate.
Yeah.
And then you have people who just have a really interesting past and you want to have a conversation
I don't know if I could
with.
do interviews though.
Maybe.
I don't know if I could do like that type of interview. If I were sitting with him, and I'm excited to listen to your episode, but if I was interviewing him, I don't know if like I could interview him. I just want to kick back and get to know him, but then eventually ask him, like, yeah, I know, like, I would ask a question like, I know like the CFTC or whatever is like motto is this, but what do you really think?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it depends. Like I say, it all depends on the guest and the service you're doing, because I know people are going to want to listen to that show and they're going to want to know about the CFTC. But also there's going to be people who are going to want to listen to this show and they just know you have a history and they're going to want to know the stories and hear it. And so that's why I...
What, do we talk prison stories?
Well, we're going to get there. We're going to get deep. But as I keep saying to your lovely wife who's here, hello, Courtney.
Hi.
So I also have to say thank you for having me here. Your hospitality has been fantastic.
Our pleasure.
Wonderful 2 days.
Today was a crazy day.
It was
I
cool.
did not expect for that to happen.
I hadn't planned for that to happen. Wading through the sea with a bag above my
Now
head.
everyone wants to know what happened.
Yeah, we can't tell them.
We can't.
They won't believe us.
Can we give them a little inkling of what happened?
Well, we might be on MTV.
True. Yeah, if you guys are watching. So we stumbled into the shoot of a MTV reality series called Siesta Key. And the way it happened was Peter's here in town visiting, but a reoccurring guest at the Shrem home is Jeremy Gardner. You guys know him as Disruptioneur. Entrepreneur, but with the
Disruption.
Disrupt. We can't pronounce.
I was like trying to say Charles Hoskinson earlier.
Charles Hodgkinson.
Yeah.
Charles Hodgkinson.
Hodgkinson?
No, that's not Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's Hodgkinson. And that's what it is. Anyways, I love you, Charles. But so Jeremy's in town, and when I say regular guest, that's what he does. He just shows up like every, one weekend out of every 2 months. He'll just be here. And so he's like, yeah. So we decided to go on Satoshi, on our boat Satoshi, and we get to this mega mansion. And Peter said, "That's someone's house," and it was huge. But we were boating up to it from the Gulf of Mexico, from the beach, and we got as close as we could. But then we realized that, okay, how are we gonna get from Satoshi, the boat Satoshi, onto the beach so we can walk to this house where there's this mega party going on? And someone saw a banana boat being pulled by a jet ski that had a phone number printed on the side.
So Charlie calls him.
So Jeremy calls him, and Jeremy has the phone. And he says, "I don't want to talk on the phone to people." He's like, "I don't want to talk on the phone. I don't. He doesn't like phone calls." So he hands me the phone. I said, "Hey, can you pick us up and take us to the party?" So we all to the banana boat, came right up to the side of our boat, and we went into the banana boat, and we boated over in the banana boat over to the beach, and everyone's looking at us like, "What are these crazy people doing?" We went to this party that wasn't really a party. It was a reality TV shoot that looked like a party. And then when we wanted to leave, the banana boat guy had left. So Peter, being the tallest one in our group,
Which is rare for me, by the way.
yeah, we basically had to wade and walk and swim back to the boat, which was like offshore, but we all had our bags and stuff with us. So Peter was holding all of our shit above his head. We were like crossing like the Rio Grande, crossing in from Mexico with our stuff on our head. And everyone's looking at us like we're crazy. And we made it back home, and we showered, and here we are all comfortable.
So that was fun.
That was a fun day.
So thank you for that, and thank you for your hospitality and inviting me here. So we got to go way back, man. Can we go back just before you discover Bitcoin? How old are you? What are you doing? What's going on in your life? I want to go right back before it all started. And then we can cover all the bad shit.
I found out about Bitcoin around 2010, 2011. In those months, I think it was like August 2010, like the end of 2010.
So you were like 20?
I couldn't even drink alcohol yet. Yeah, I was probably 20 years old.
Bet you did, though.
No comment. No. Smoked a lot of weed.
All right, okay.
I wasn't... A good night for me was like, I go out with friends, but then by like 10 or 11 o'clock, I would just want to go home in my basement and just smoke a bunch of weed and watch TV. Like I didn't... that was more of a better time for me, because when I would do that, I would turn on my computer and I'd enter this internet world, and those were my real friends. I was able to make internet friends a lot better than making real friends, like in real life. And that's why, like yourself, people that I'll meet on internet, I just know that they're good people, and I'll invite them to come here. And my wife still thinks I'm crazy for doing that. She's like, "You never even met this person," but I just do. And actually, that's the summer before I had met Bitcoin. I had found out about Bitcoin. I had these two friends that I was like best friends with online. We had this IRC network, and hundreds of people on our IRC network, and we had a little ad revenue going, and we're a bunch of kids, It was like just one of these sites where you can learn how to like do like SQL injection and all these little hacky type stuff. And I was just a little hacker kid in the basement, in my parents' Jewish house in Brooklyn.
But so you skipped the whole college thing?
No. So I went to college. So it's not yet though. I'm still high school at this point. Yeah, this was early. So in the summer between high school and college, that summer I went to Norway for a month, and I had stayed at this guy's house that I'm still friends with today, but we had met online, and my parents were like, "You're crazy. You're going to spend a month at this guy's house in Norway, so you have no idea who he was." But I'm going to tell you a funny story about that, the untold stories of Charlie. It was three of us. It was me, Cassie, who was the guy who lived in Norway, and it was our other friend. His name was Polynomial. I still don't know his real name. Polynomial was from Manchester in England.
Right, okay.
But I didn't know what he looked like. I don't know anything about him, like physically, any pictures. But Polynomial was like my best friend. Like we talked every day, knew my deepest, darkest secrets, right?
Yeah.
And so we had a plan. And the plan was I was gonna fly to the UK and then stop over in London and then fly from London to Norway.
Okay.
And we hopped on the same plane together in London, but we didn't know who each other were. So when we landed in this small airport in Norway, everyone got off the plane except for me and this 6.5 foot tall, black hair, black eyeliner, black makeup, black shirt, black shoes, spiky boots, black belt, like super goth.
Right. Okay.
And I'm
like
looking at this
Marilyn
guy-
Manson or something.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, I'm terrified of this guy. And he walked over to me and he gave me a big hug. And he's like, "It's so good to meet you in person." This guy's my best friend, but I never even knew what he looked like. I knew
Right.
anything about him. And we ended up spending a month together.
Cool.
But those are the type of people that you meet on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
And so I know I'm going off a lot of tangents.
That's cool.
here.
That's fine.
But so I had a startup that I had started in Brooklyn, and I did this to make, it was a side hustle. I did
Okay.
this to make some extra money. And the startup was basically, I built a website and I went to all the warehouses and I go to like CVS and Dwayne Reed and Walgreens, and I'd buy up all like the stuff that they couldn't sell. And I just resell them on the internet, one deal a day, dailycheckout.com. I did that to make a little bit extra money, and it actually ended up doing very well. And then I ran that for my first 2 years in college, and then around my towards the end of my second year of college is when I had found out about Bitcoin, and that's when I told my partner, who's my cousin Joey, I was like, we need to sell this company. I'm going into Bitcoin. It's like, what are you gonna do? I said, I don't know.
How did
love
you
it.
discover Bitcoin though? What was where did you hear about it just
It
online?
was an IRC.
Okay. But how did it click for you? Because it didn't click for me first time.
You know, most of my guests on Untold Stories, it's funny because they all say the same thing. They'd heard about it, and it didn't click for them. And then like a few months later, they'd heard about it again, and they were like, I got to check this thing out. It was always the first time.
So I discovered it with the Silk Road. I told you about that.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, cool. This is a way I can buy some stuff I can't normally buy. But it still didn't really click with me. And the price went up, the price went down. Then I forgot about it. It was only after my mum got sick, and then I wanted to buy her some cannabis oil for treatment.
Sure.
And I could use it. And then it clicked. It was like, well, hold on. This solves a problem. This is a problem that we have, that I can't buy a treatment for my mother, and now I can do it. So the second time it just clicked. But it still didn't fully click.
Yeah, I understand. I see what you mean. So the first time I remember I had heard about it was I was in an IRC network, and I'll tell you why it clicked. I was involved with this charity in Israel to raise money for victims of terror.
Mm-hmm.
Kids who need like prosthetic legs, and kids who need like prosthetic arms, and blind sailors and whatever. And I was helping them raise money in the United States. And this was like when PayPal was first getting big. So I had to set up a PayPal account for them. And they were going around the country using this PayPal account that I had set up for them to raise money. And they were raising a lot of money around America, you know, going on a whole tour, donations. And what had happened was PayPal froze the account because they said they're not a real nonprofit. Because they're a nonprofit in Israel, but they didn't get their 501c3 in the U.S.
Right, okay.
So PayPal froze all their money. And they looked at me and they're like, what happened? I was like, I mean, I don't know. And that made me realize that a lot of times you think that it's your money, but it's not your money.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found out about Bitcoin, someone started talking to me about it, and I started playing around, you know, and I just downloaded, you know, I downloaded Bitcoin D and then Bitcoin QT at the time. So Bitcoin, before the term Bitcoin Core came, there was two iterations of Bitcoin. There was Bitcoin QT, and this was the downloadable software that you could download on your Mac or PC or Linux. And actually, when you ran it, it was a node, it was your wallet, and it mined. So as software was open, you were mining. So everyone was mining. Someone asked me, when did you start? Did you ever mine Bitcoin? I was like, everyone mined Bitcoin. It's just what you did.
You weren't in a pool.
No, everyone mined Bitcoin on their own because the software mined for you.
So did you solve some blocks? You must have solved.
Of course I did. Everyone did.
So
Everyone
when it did, was it
solving
like,
blocks.
wow, fuck, I got one?
No, it didn't, because Bitcoin had no value.
Okay.
There was no tradability, really. There was like one website that was literally just like a Google spreadsheet that one guy manually updated of bids and offers of people. This is pre-Mt. Gox.
Well, yes.
That was the Bitcoin exchange. It was like 10,000 Bitcoin for $5. You know, it wasn't real. So Gavin ran a faucet that was basically giving away. You put your address on the faucet and you get 100 Bitcoin.
Fuck 100
I know,
Bitcoin.
and
right.
it's just, who cares? Like, Bitcoin wasn't worth anything back then.
And I used to hear about people used to buy it on like eBay, and someone would send them the money and then they would send them the Bitcoin.
Sure.
Could you imagine that happening now? You wouldn't get the Bitcoin.
No, you never get it. And so that's what it was like back then. And so when I downloaded the software, I generated an address, you know, and my friend Joe, him and I were into tech together. So he was at his house in New Jersey, I was in New York, and I had told him to download the software and generate an address, and I'll send it to you. I'll send you some Bitcoin. So he downloaded the software, and I sent him 500 Bitcoin. And it
500.
It didn't go through. Like, he never got it until today. I don't know why he never got it. I think I know why. I think because he didn't sync. He didn't have his ports open. He didn't sync the chain. So it actually did send to him. And I remember years later, I was like, Joe, you got to find that laptop. Like, you got your private keys are on that laptop. He's like, no, I threw it away years ago. I was like,
It's like $5 million today.
Yeah, I know. And so you're like, you got to find it. But that was so as I was starting to understand it, the way it clicked was had this software and he had it. And I was like, okay, it's like a downloadable version of PayPal, except these units called Bitcoins aren't worth shit. So who cares? Why is this thing such a big deal? And then I had started reading more about it. And I was talking to all my friends in the IRC network, and we started chatting about Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin was talked about on IRC and on the Bitcoin forums. But IRC was bigger. Like, everyone talked about it on, like, you could at one point, I remember in 2012, we got every mining pool, every exchange, and every major business in one IRC chat room.
Wow.
Because there was in 2012, I think it was 2012, 2013, when we upgraded to Bitcoin version 9, it wasn't compatible with version 8, and it was a big hard fork, and the chain actually split. Half the miners were mining on one chain and the other miners, and we were able to get everyone in the room together and basically like have everyone drop one chain and continue mining on the other chain. Right. That was a big deal. Yeah, I remember that. I was like at a bar mitzvah and I had to go home because I was running BitInstant, and we were running the nodes of one chain. We had to like stop. Me, BitPay, Mt. Gox, Trade Hill, I think that was it. There wasn't no one else.
All right.
You had to like pause.
How many Bitcoin do you reckon you've like?
But wait, before you, so you've asked me why it clicked for me.
Yeah.
And
because it's got no value.
So what happened was, as I understood it, you literally open up the database file on your computer, and you're seeing in real time the size of this file is increasing. So imagine you have a file on your computer that's constantly increasing. You're like, why is it 100 megabytes and now it's 101 and then it's 102? The file size is increasing because what's happening is in real time, your database is getting all the transactions of everyone else using it in real time. So I maintain a copy of the blockchain in real time of not just my transactions, but everyone else's. And that clicked for me because now I realized, so this ledger is actually completely decentralized. And I didn't even use the word decentralized because that wasn't like a lingo. But I said this ledger is now actually like being maintained on everyone's computers in real time. So no one can freeze it. No one can reverse it. No one can counterfeit. No one can double spend. Like, that's when it really clicked for me.
Right. So, okay. So at that point, you're like, I get it. Now it needs to have some kind of value.
Now it needs to have some kind of value. And that's when I started BitInstant.
Okay. So just back in those early days, how many Bitcoin do you reckon you've just given away or lost just fucking about?
How many have I given away or lost?
Yeah.
Hundreds, if not thousands.
Thousands of Bitcoin. It's mad,
There's a YouTube video out there of a guy who made a theme song about BitInstant. Anyone can YouTube it right now and find it. It's about as good Chow Donged or Zutonged or whatever. And in the comments of the video, you can see it till today. You can see it in the comments. I said, hey man, give me your Bitcoin address. I want to send you some Bitcoin. And I meant to send him 5 Bitcoin because it was worth like $100 at the time. So I was giving him like $500. And I accidentally sent him 50 Bitcoin. And I was like, he's like, should I send it back? I was like, nah, man, just keep it.
Yeah.
You know?
And the people these days are just like, I just want to get 1 Bitcoin. I just want to get the sats.
One is a big number, you know? Even 1 Bitcoin. It's not, think about it. There'll only ever be 21 million Bitcoin.
Yeah, but it's less really. When you think, if you're really honest, because the 4 million they reckon have been lost?
Maybe more than that.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot less than that. Maybe half.
Yeah, so you say 17 million, but was it you who tweeted out recently? You said you're only going to need 5.
You only need 5.
You only need 5.
You'll only need 5 in like 10 or 20 years from now. You know, life-changing money. $5 million. 1 Bitcoin, $1 million. $5 million is enough money to have that money work for you, and you could live off the interest. You know, because that's wealth. Wealth is not how much money you have. Wealth is when you have money that's working for you to make you more money, and you could sit back and do nothing for the rest of your life, and you'll just have income coming in. That's wealth.
So you've discovered Bitcoin, you're getting your head around it, and then you decide you want to create a business.
No,
not
yet. Knowing me, I always have side hustles, So my first foray into earning money with Bitcoin was I would go on eBay and I would buy like airline vouchers, like JetBlue vouchers and American Airline vouchers from people, and then resell those vouchers for Bitcoin at a profit. That was how I would earn Bitcoin.
Okay. And then
I started selling a lot of my daily checkout products online to earn Bitcoin too, like knives and stuff like that. I would sell knives and throwing knives and all this stuff. I would sell anything I could sell, really. I would sell for Bitcoin on the forums. And then one day I was just browsing the forums. It was about like May 2011, and I see a post by this guy named Gareth Nelson, UK. And he's like, "Hey, I have an idea to make buying Bitcoin faster." Going back to what I said earlier, the thing had no value. So in the back of my mind, I was always saying, this thing needs to, I need to get some. And I was content with the community that we had, right? The community that we had was a great little community. It wasn't meant to grow into this whole thing it was today. We just wanted to be a stable little community of people transacting with each other on these forums and using Bitcoin to do it. That's all it was. If the economics of Bitcoin and people buying and selling and holding it never went beyond this forum and these marketplaces, like these message boards, they're totally fine with me. Like, that's what it was. And that was never meant to be this whole thing. It was this social experiment at the end of the day. So Gareth had posted this thing, and he's like, I have an idea to make buying Bitcoin easier. And again, the idea to make buying Bitcoin easier wasn't so I can get my grandma to buy Bitcoin. It was so people on the forums can be able to have the way to buy and sell Bitcoin faster, so we can all transact with each other. And so Gareth had an idea, and the idea was BitInstant. He called it something else. He had a very basic idea. And so what I did was I messaged him back, and the post is public. I said, I like this idea. How much money do you need to start it? He's like, I need $1,000. I said, all right, let's do it together. We'll own it 50-50. And that was the start of a beautiful business relationship together. And we started BitInstant, which very quickly later was the largest Bitcoin company ever. We had like 30 people working for us. And I started it in my basement. I didn't intend for it to be like this whole business. It was like a side hustle. And the rest
so this
is kind
came
of history.
before Mt. Gox.
This was during the same time as Mt. Gox.
About the same
Mt.
time.
Gox was very difficult to buy Bitcoin. You'd have to wire money to some Japanese guy's personal bank account, and it was just manual, and it was shady and weird. And then once you have the money on the exchange, you have to like buy Bitcoin with it. You want to like just buy Bitcoin. You don't have to like enter a bid, order, and ask on the exchange. It's complicated.
Actually, prior to the Japanese account, it was wired to Jed's Chase account.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, so that's what, and then before he sold it to Mark. So how did BitInstant do it differently?
What BitInstant did was BitInstant would maintain large accounts at Mt. Gox already. And we did it through various credit agreements with Mt. Gox, or we'd actually wire him a few $100,000 and leave it there. And then what we'd do is we'd have people in the U.S., we'd have bank accounts here, and we had relationships with like Walgreens and CVS and Duane Reade and Walmart, where you can walk into these locations, deposit money with them, and then our software would instantly move money from our account at the exchange to your account at the exchange.
Right, okay. So tell me the journey from it being you two with $1,000 to being 30 people.
It just grew very quickly. I had the original $1,000, and then I borrowed money from my mom, like 10 grand, and then Roger Ver put in $100 and something thousand, and then Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss put in $1.5 million.
How did you meet them?
I had another investor, David, who I knew from Brooklyn, and he was just kind of crazy, wacky guy, really nice guy, and he was in Ibiza on vacation with his wife, and he saw them like just out on the beach, and he offered them his beach chair and said, hey, have you heard about this Bitcoin thing? And they're like, no. And he sold them on it, like literally on the beach. And then they were still very unconvinced, but they had heard about it, through him and from their research. And so they called me up out of the blue, and they were like, hey, we heard you're the Bitcoin kid. Can you convince us it's the future? And I said, hell yeah, I can. Where do I start? And less than a month or two later, they were jumping in full, head first or feet first or whatever the term is.
And was that with them accumulating Bitcoin, or was where
They had first invested. They had first made an inclination they wanted to invest in BitInstant and let it grow, and they also want to start accumulating Bitcoin.
Right.
And so that was their job. That's what they asked me to help them do, is start accumulating Bitcoin for them.
Okay, but they came and put $1.5 million in the business.
In the business, yeah.
And good relationship to begin with.
Yeah, it was a pretty good relationship over the course of time, and I have some regrets by how the relationship went. But I was a young kid who walked around like a shit didn't stink. I was on top of the world. I was the king of the world, and these guys were basically trying to tell me like, hey, like the company's growing. You have no experience being a CEO. Why don't we get a professional CEO to run this company? And I was like, no. And in hindsight, I should have listened to them, and I wish I had, because now it's like every startup CEO's dream to be big enough where you have a real professional come in and take over the company. You get to become chairman and just kick back and relax.
Yeah, I guess in hindsight, could have BitInstant been the Coinbase as such?
I'll tell you why no, because Coinbase had learned from all of our mistakes, and literally he did. He invited me over to his house in California, Brian Armstrong, without ever telling me that he was starting Coinbase. And we sat for 3 hours, and I told him like everything about BitInstant. And then he's like, oh, thank you for telling me everything. I'm starting my own competitor to you.
Okay, that's
literally how it went down. You know who else was in that room? Jared Kenna, Tony Galippi from BitPay, and Roger Ver was there.
Roger Ver seems to be in all these meetings.
He's everywhere. We were so close back then. But that was the whole Bitcoin community. Like, there wasn't many meetings. There was like 10 people. It was the whole space.
So it was you.
It was so small.
Roger, Eric.
Yeah. No, Eric wasn't even involved yet.
Wasn't even involved at that point?
No, Eric didn't get involved until 2012 in the crypto space.
Okay, so you take the 1.5 million. How's it go to begin with?
The company is just growing. It's growing. It's expanding. We're moving offices. It's going crazy.
Okay.
And everything was really good. And then, we built our software to operate a certain way, and we built our company for a certain way. And then the government came out and said, you need these money transmitter licenses. And that's when we decided that we didn't have them. So we shut down the company. It was very difficult to do.
Why didn't you apply for the...
It's too expensive. It was tens of millions of dollars that I didn't have. And I got a little burnt out. I was running BitInstant for almost 3 years at this point. I was tired. I didn't really want to do it anymore. So we shut down. We gave back the investors their money. We paid the Winklevoss back their debt, and we shuttered. And I wasn't sad about it, because I was like, there were a lot, and I could admit this, and I was able to admit it back then too. There are a lot better companies that had launched that are doing what BitInstant was doing, but better, nicer, and easier. And I was like, BitInstant served its purpose. It was the first company. It had a goal. It had a mandate, and its mandate was over. Its mandate was, let's get Bitcoin in the hands of as many people as possible, as cheap and as fast as possible, to get this thing where it can stand on its own 2 feet. And by the time we shut down the company, that mandate was completed. And so I wasn't sad about shutting the company, and I wanted to move on to other things.
Cameron and Tyler have expressed opinions about how you run the company as well, right?
Yeah.
And they've not been the most positive about it.
They're 100% right.
So they were fair.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's going to exaggerate. They're going to exaggerate about me. I'm going to exaggerate them. I was this 22, 23-year-old kid running a multi-million-dollar startup in the financial money transmission space. I literally was winging it. Every morning I'd wake up and be winging this thing.
Right, okay.
No idea what I was doing, but I was terrified. But the adrenaline was amazing.
Did you ever suffer from hacks with BitInstant?
We were very fortunate that we only had one hack, and we were able to stop it and only lose about 10 grand.
Okay, that's not too bad.
So. I pray. We kind of joke, me and my friends now. It's like we were the only Bitcoin company that shut down where no one lost any money. Like all of our customers got paid out 100%. They're all good. Like no one. We didn't take anyone's money or anything.
All right, so you closed
And
down.
that's something to be very proud of,
Yeah,
because
of
all these
course.
exchanges shut down, and they take away everyone's money.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I closed down an advertising agency. God, when was that? 4 years ago, and we didn't lose any money. We took money out of the business, and it was a nice thing rather
Yeah.
than running into the ground. And
I like that.
it's which is a bit crap. Okay, so BitInstant closes. You've still got the Bitcoin bug. What happens next?
I was traveling around the world. I had founded the Bitcoin Foundation a few months earlier than that, and the foundation was getting really big, had a really nice budget. And the concept of the foundation, the idea of the Bitcoin Foundation was created actually by me and Gavin, and we were sitting in a cafe in Austria together in 2012, or 2011 maybe. And the idea of the foundation was basically, I was like, Gavin, like, our community's growing, but we're still very fractured. And so what do you think of the idea of basically taking all the companies and all the individuals in the space and all the miners and allowing them to put a little bit of money every year towards a foundation that'll basically use that money to do advertising, to pay developers, to run a conference, and allow us not to be like a centralized power authority, but to just be this like trade group. And he completely agreed with me. I said, Gavin, we cannot be seen as representing the Bitcoin community as a whole. I want to be seen as representing our members. And that's what it was started as. And the first board was great. And we ran we ran two amazing conferences. We ran Bitcoin 2013 in San Jose, which was the first real Bitcoin conference. And then we ran Bitcoin 2014 in Amsterdam, which was a huge conference. So we were doing really great things, but then eventually the foundation changed, and the people that were elected to the board were just thirsty with power and cared more about their travel budget that the foundation gave them than they did about the actual growing the concept of the foundation. And it changed, and I'm okay with that. But a few months later, I was arrested. And when I was arrested, I actually resigned from the foundation. I haven't spoken to them since.
All right, well, we'll come to the arrest. The foundation has left a lot of kind of people bitter, right?
Yeah, I'm bitter too. It sucks founding something and then it completely changing. I wish it had just died, not still be there. Because it's still there, it's like a slap in the face.
Yeah. So let's talk about the arrest.
Sure.
I've read about it before. I've read parts of it, should I
Sure.
say. Tell me what happened.
We were on our way home from a conference in Amsterdam, and we were planning on coming home. And as we were leaving the customs area, a bunch of federal agents came up to us and said, "Are you Charlie Shrem?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Please come with us." And they took me into a back room, and they said, "You are formally under arrest for money laundering and a bunch of other stuff. Do you want me to read you your rights?" And I was like, "I watch enough TV." And he's like, "Can we ask you a few questions?" And I was like, "I watch Law and Order." You know, you can't, I'm not stupid. And I was like, all right. And it was kind of crazy. I was like just completely in shock. They made Courtney get the luggage, and they put me in like all these black vans, and they had the handcuffs behind my back, and it hurt. And I had no idea where I was going or whether Courtney was okay or not, you know, and it was just a big craziness. And they took me, I remember that night I spent the night in like 6 different holding cells in 6 different places.
That's
They just
kinda
kept
scary.
moving me all the time. I had no idea where I was. Like, I don't know if I was in New Jersey or Connecticut or New York or California. I would be ushered into tinted black sedans and taken to the DEA headquarters. Then they take pictures. Then they put me to the ATF headquarters. Then the IRS. Then the freaking NYPD. I'm just being shuffled around like a clown and taking pictures and throwing me in holding cells all night long.
Did you know what it was about at that point?
I didn't know till the next day, till my lawyer through the thick glass told me what was going on. He's like, "Had you ever heard of BTC King?" So then I spend that night. Eventually it was a Sunday night. I get to my solitary confinement cell in Metropolitan Correctional Center.
But you must have something going through your head, what you think it's about.
No idea.
No idea.
No idea. I thought it was just that I was running BitInstant, you know, and you need to have a license or whatever. And I was like, this will be sorted out very quickly. Like, it's not a big deal. And I was in a holding cell with this crackhead who had beat up his other roommate because he peed all over the seat. And that's where they put me with. And the next day, I spoke to my lawyer through the glass, and he told me, "Had you heard of BTC King?" And I was like, "Who?" And he said, "Well, you emailed this guy and told him that you knew he was reselling the Bitcoin that he bought for you on the Silk Road, and that's illegal because you knew he was selling. You were selling Bitcoin to him, and you knew that he was then using it on Silk Road." And I was like, "Okay. How bad is it? It's just an email." Like, he's like, "Well, technically, legally, that's, money laundering." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm facing 30 years in prison for that."
So have you got a lawyer with you at this point?
I had a civil lawyer, but I didn't have a criminal lawyer. So
Okay.
a civil lawyer helped me get bail. I basically got an ankle bracelet. I was put under house arrest.
Right, because you were providing him with Bitcoin and he was using it to trade on the Silk Road. Therefore, you are...
No, he was buying Bitcoin from me or from BitInstant and then reselling that Bitcoin
Oh, reselling it.
as advertisements. So Silk Road had a forum. So he had his own forum post saying, "You need Bitcoin for Silk Road? Buy Bitcoin from me."
Oh, okay.
And then other people were buying Bitcoin from him that were probably using it on Silk Road.
That's like 3 steps away.
Listen, I don't make the laws.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens after that?
So I hired a lawyer and went on house arrest and then went through the whole process.
But I guess... Were you contemplating going to prison, or were you always kind of thinking, no, this
I was kind of always thinking that I'd get probation.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was like this huge deal. So I pled down. I pled down to a lesser charge of... I pled guilty to aiding and abetting the operation of an unlicensed money transmitter business. And that carried a maximum of 5 years. And yeah, it was like my first time offender. I'm just a kid. It was like a one-time thing that happened a few months ago. Normally, it would have been probation, and you would have never even heard about it on the news. But because it was Bitcoin, it gained a lot more attention.
Do you think it was also part related to BitInstant and wider Bitcoin? Because, at the time, Bitcoin was new. People weren't really sure about it. Do you think this was some kind of like fear of Bitcoin? Or do you think the case was specifically isolated
The
just to what
judge
happened?
said it himself that he had to sentence me because they needed a deterrence. I mean, it's clear. It's in my sentencing notes in the memo. You can read it. He said that they needed to have a deterrence. They need to deter people from doing the same thing that I did.
So essentially,
I was made an example of.
like Ross was?
Of course. I mean, Ross got the worst deal that you could possibly get. I mean, no matter what you say, he got, life in prison without parole? I mean, that's crazy.
But they offered you, it was a plea bargain, right?
Yeah.
And if you hadn't have taken that, you would have been at risk of
I
30
would have went to
years.
trial. I would have probably lost the trial. No one wins a trial.
And that's a much bigger sentence.
Yes. Because the court likes it when you admit your mistake. So, and I knew I was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I knew the email was there, as clear as day. I knew what I did was illegal.
But you didn't know it was illegal at the time you
Not
did
at the
it.
time, but once I realized it, I was like, tell my lawyer, I was like, we're not going to win here. Let's just get the best deal we can get.
Okay, so you get your sentence, what was it, 2 years?
2 years.
Okay,
Yes.
and how long is it between the sentencing and going to prison? Do you have a chance to go home, or do they take you straight away?
Yeah, so there is a chance that they take you away at that minute,
Yeah.
but it's a very small chance. Usually they let you self-surrender in a few months. So I got sentenced in December, and I think I self-surrendered in March.
Okay. And how do you even prepare for going to prison? I mean,
You ignore it until
You-
like
okay.
2 weeks before.
okay,
You just live your life.
you just live your life, but
And
it's
then-
coming up.
What you do is like you have to basically any bills that need to be paid automatically. You stop. Like I put my cell phone in my wife's name. We didn't really have any other expenses and bills at the time, so we gave up our apartment and my wife moved back in with her mother in Pennsylvania because it was only like an hour and a half drive to visit me in the prison, and so that was great that she was able to visit me so frequently. And you just close up your life. You put your life on hold, and you just prepare to come back in 2 years or whatever it is.
Okay, so you head to prison. How does it work? Are you allowed to take certain stuff with you, or do you just go in your clothes and they take your clothes and you go in?
You have a day that you need to self-surrender. It's a day, and they start accepting inmates around 8 a.m. Most people don't show up to the afternoon, but you want to get there as early as possible so you can get assigned a bunk. and there's a chance that if the jail is busy, the prison is busy, and don't have room for you yet, that you could end up spending like the first few nights in solitary. So you want to be the first one there, so you can spend the whole day. So we left New York at around 5 a.m. and got to Pennsylvania around 8. We had breakfast. Last breakfast I had was Panera, but I couldn't eat. I had no appetite. And then I walked in. I said goodbye to my wife. I said goodbye to my mother-in-law was there, and we said our goodbyes. And I said, I'll see you in a few weeks at the first visit. It's only going to be. I knew the maximum I would have to serve would be around 18 months. A year and a half. So I was like, it's not going to be that bad. We're going to be good. Like it's going to be so short. It's going to go by so quickly. I like that we were in the state. We were only an hour and a half away from each other instead of me being in like 3 states away, because I knew that we can watch the sunset together. Like we were right there. So that was really nice. It felt good that she was only an hour and a half away.
Well, that's one of the fuck things about the prison system, which I found out.
They send you.
Yeah.
You have no say. They could send me to California. I'm lucky I got sent to Pennsylvania.
So I talked to Lynn Albrecht about this, and she was saying they have a team. They call it the hotel team, and they can move you anywhere. And you could have a wife and children, and they can move you 3 states away, and there's no possibility of your wife and children coming to regularly visit you.
No.
They just don't care.
They do it on purpose. And what happens is, when you're less than a year left, you're allowed to request a transfer to another prison that's closer to your home. And that's the best you can get.
Right.
But other than that, most of the inmates I was with, I don't know, they came from Texas, all over.
Okay.
I was lucky that I was able to get to Pennsylvania. And the way I was able to do that was they have these things called prison consultants. And Roger Veer, actually, I couldn't afford it. Roger Veer helped me pay for it. And I will be always grateful to him for that. I called him up and I was like, Roger, like, you're the closest thing I have to a father. There's this prison consultant that I could hire, and he thinks he can help me navigate the Bureau of Prisons and get me, instead of sent to like California or freaking Montana, to a prison close to home in Pennsylvania. He's like, how much is it? And I said this, and I was like, I can't afford all of it. Can you loan me some money and help me get there? And he's like, no problem. Just tell me where to send the money.
Yes, one of the strange things about Roger, I flew out to Turkey. I flew out to Tokyo to interview him, spent some time with him, talked about Ross when the microphone switched off. And I know he's done all these things that people don't like. And I know a bunch of Bitcoiners are pissed off.
He'll give him the shirt off his back.
Yeah, I know there's what I know he's done for Ross, now what he's done for you. But there's other things I know he's done, which I wouldn't talk about.
Yeah.
But he has done all these other good things, which I'm not saying even that it gives him forgiveness for the bad stuff, but
it's nice.
It's nice.
He's not intentionally bad.
He's not an evil.
No, he's not
person.
an evil person. He's not. He's really not a bad person. He's just. There are people that have been. So I've been very close with him, and so when I got out of jail, I hadn't seen him in 2 years, so I didn't see this transition. It went from the Roger who he was to the Roger that he became. But I have friends that we've been as close, like Eric Lombroso. Eric Lombroso was very close to Roger too.
Yeah.
And Eric would call me up and say Charlie, I really believe that Roger has had like CIA implants in his head. That's how much he's changed. For Eric, who's rational, tell me that Roger must be abducted by aliens, because he's not the same Roger as he was. He's a completely different person.
Eric's also a great person for me. He's become a mentor in the background.
Sure.
I don't know if I'll embarrass him talking about this.
I literally spoke to him 3 days ago.
Well, so I've only met him once, but he spent a lot of time, he'll just message me. He'll see I'll put a tweet out or a decision I'm making or something I'm doing, or I'll have a question for him. Every time he answers, he's been
That's
real
great.
Support, because there's a lot of pressure that comes in the Bitcoin world if you're doing something that exposes you to a bunch of people's opinions.
Sure.
And he's been a real great sounding board for me, and
That's really
like
nice.
a mentor.
As busy as he is, it's really nice that he can do that. So I'll tell you a funny story, and these are type of stories that I tell on my podcast, untoldstories.com. But one day, so I was running BitInstant by myself, and Roger called me up and he's like, you need help. And I was like, yeah, I need help with a lot of things. But he's like, no, you need help in this company. And I was like, all right, well, I don't really trust anyone. And he's like, I know this kid. He lives in New Hampshire. He's really smart. His name is Eric Voorhees. You need to hire him. And I was like, Eric, I'm not paying some random guy who lives in New Hampshire. a salary because you tell me I need to. And he's like, Charlie, I will pay his salary. I'm hiring him for you. If you don't take him, I'm going to have him do some stuff for me. But he's a brilliant kid, and I want him to help you. I was like, all right, let's see if I like him. So Eric took the train down from New Hampshire to New York, and we instantly became best friends. And I was like, all right, Roger, I'm going to hire him. And he literally became like my number 2. He ran the company, everything, operations, marketing. He was just the number 2.
He's another person who has, sadly, I guess, how would you say it? I really like Eric. Interviewed him twice.
He's been like demonized, you think, a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. And
we've all been. I've been.
Well, walking a perfect Bitcoin path very hard. And, he's done some other things with Shapeshift. He's been involved in tokens. And
but
also,
that's capitalism. Capitalism means that you can do whatever you want as long as you're not stealing from other people.
I think also some of the support he gave for S2X.
Yes, the Segway 2X.
Hasn't really worked out for him, but at the same time, he's a really great person. And he's also another person, when I reach out to him, he always gets back to me, he always gives me the time of day. Sometimes I kind of hope these relationships get rebuilt at some point for some of these people.
They will down the road, I think.
All right, so listen, look, you're going to prison first day. Is it all kind of a bit surreal? Are you scared going in, or you're like, whatever?
Don't laugh, but there was some excitement.
Okay.
Not like happy excitement, but you're doing this crazy thing, and in the back of your mind, you're like, this is just going to be a great story to tell one day.
Yeah.
And let me ask you a question. So imagine if you're being sentenced to prison.
Uh-huh.
You're standing in the courtroom, and you just went through 2 years of house arrest and being in the criminal justice system, prosecution, craziness. And you're standing in the courtroom, and the judge just says you're being sentenced to 2 years. How would you feel?
I think I'd feel hollow. I think my insides would kind of drop out of me.
Ask me what I felt at that moment.
What did you feel at that moment?
Relief.
Because you had a time in the future where it was all over.
You hit the nail right on the head.
Right, okay, I get it.
All of us, for 2 years, I'm going through this tunnel that has no ending. And now all of a sudden, I could look at my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and say, in 2 years, this is going to be all over, and we can live a life together.
Because you didn't know how long the sentence could have been.
I was facing 30 years.
Yeah, okay. Which is your life fucked.
Yeah, you're fucked. And so...
I still think Courtney would have waited for you.
I still think she would have waited for me, too.
Yeah, I think so.
And so I now had this immense wave of relief that just went over me. And Courtney will tell you, we all left and we went to this pizza store, and I was happy. I was jovial, right? Like I was in a good mood because, well, one, I didn't have to surrender early, so I can prepare and plan. But I was like, I'm only going to be in prison a year and a half. It's not the end of the world. Like let's plan a vacation for 2 years from now, Like that's how I was feeling. So when I went in that first day, I'm like, all right, day 1, I can start counting this down. Let's get this over with.
And like, what's the process on that first day? What is that?
It's a clock.
It's a clock.
Every hour it sings a song. And then during Christmas time, it does Christmas music.
That's amazing. So
hold on.
You go in the first day. I guess there's a bunch of procedural
I wish we
stuff.
can walk the dog and do this podcast at the same time.
Well, yeah, we can't really
gear
carry this. So you have the procedural stuff on the first day.
Yeah. So you walk into prison, you say goodbye to your family, and there's this room called R&D. It's called Receiving and Discharge. So you walk into prison, you walk into this room, and it's like a little administration building, and you say, hi, my name is Charlie Shrem, I'm here to self-surrender. And they say, all right, sit down and wait. And your family waits with you. And then a few minutes later, they say, all right, you ready? And you give them your last goodbyes, and they're crying and blah, blah, blah. And you go in this room. And I know this because I had read a lot of, not reviews, but I read a lot of forums of people describing like the first day, of what it's like. And so they drive off, and I'm in this room, and the guard is there, and he was like a very nice guy. Like he was not a nice guy, but he wasn't this like hard, mean guard. He was like this laughing and joking around, and he's like, all right, like take all your clothes off, I gotta search you. And so you're in this like room, and you're just kind of standing around, and there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be signed. And he told me, like, this room, you're only going to meet me twice. The day you come and the day you leave. And I remember that. And I remember looking forward to that day that I could be in the discharge room,
Mm-hmm.
And the day I was released is the second happiest day of my life. The first happiest day of my life was when we got married. The second happiest day of my life was when I was released from prison. So you're in there the first day, and you're stripped naked. They stick their hand up your ass, to check for any cocaine up your anus, and they give you like all these clothes. You get all your clothes in your bag with your pillow and all your shit. And they give you a bunk assignment, and then they open a door and you're released into the general population, and you got to take your shit, and you have this big sack of shit, your pillow and your blankets and your stuff over your shoulder, and that basically means all the other inmates like stop what they're doing and they're all checking you out.
That must be a really intimidating entry going in. You must be like, oh fuck, what's this going to be like?
Yeah, you walk in there and you have no idea what to expect.
Are you thinking the worst?
The motto of prison is hope for the best, plan for the worst, plan for the worst, hope for the best. And so yes, you're planning for the worst. And I sat on a bench. There's a bench. Sat down on the bench with my shit. Guy walked up to me and he goes, "Are you a self-surrender or are you a transfer?" I sat on the bench and he said, "Are you a self-surrender or are you a transfer?" I said, "I'm a self-surrender." He said, "All right, welcome to Lewisburg." I said, "Thank you." He said, "My name is," we'll call him Belkin for the sake of conversation. He said, "My name is Belkin, and I'm going to give you one piece of advice." And I said, "What is that?" He says, "Well, if someone leaves candy on your pillow at night, don't eat the candy." I was like, "Thank you for letting me know."
Is that like you want a boyfriend?
It means that you've accepted becoming someone's bitch.
Oh.
So I was like, all right, thanks. So I go about my day, and that night there's a Snickers bar on my pillow. And I'm thinking that it was just him like fucking around with me, joking. So I eat the Snickers, the free Snickers. You're in prison.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Exactly. I want a Snickers. I went through the worst day of my life. And so I eat the Snickers, and then like that night I saw him, and I was like, "Hey man, thanks for the Snickers." And he's like, "It wasn't me." And I was like, oh. And that first night I was sleeping with my eyes open.
Next up, I talked to Charlie more about prison life and how he reflects on it. But before that, I've got a message from my amazing show sponsors. So BlockFi, the company that's creating the future of Bitcoin financial services, met up with Zach Prince while I was out here in San Francisco. Loads of cool stuff happening for them. More announcements coming, but they have got two amazing products if you want to check them out. They've got their crypto interest accounts and their crypto backed loans. And they're now offering support for the Gemini stablecoin across the entire platform. BlockFi interest accounts at launch will be eligible for 6.2% APY paid monthly with a minimum balance of 2,500 GUSD. Balances over 100,000 GUSD will earn a tiered rate of 1.5% APY. BlockFi also offers GUSD as a USD funding option and as collateral for institutional crypto borrowers. BlockFi's USD loan rate start as low as 4.5%, and when I get back and I've got the chance, I'm going to be testing this out myself. So, BlockFi, love these guys, supported the show for a long time. If you are interested in checking them out, head over to blockfi.com, which is BLOCKFI.com. And last but definitely and never least is Kraken. I'll tell you something great about Kraken. As I travel around the world to do these interviews, every city I get to, somebody from Kraken comes out and introduces themselves, offers to buy me a beer, offers to organize a dinner. It's amazing the support I've got from the company, not just with the podcast, but just being there as I go to different cities, making sure I'm okay. It's an amazing company, but that reflects on them. And if you want to understand the culture of the company, I did a really great interview with Jesse Powell. So definitely check out Kraken. They are the best exchange for buying and selling digital assets. They are the only place I use for buying and selling Bitcoin now, and they are the only regulated spot and futures crypto exchange. I've got an interview coming up with Nick Pacocco, their chief security officer. It's planned. It's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about all things security. But if you want to join me in supporting Kraken, the best crypto exchange in the world, head over to kraken.com, which is KRAKEN.com.
What was that first night like?
It was a tough night.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was it's very loud in prison. In the units, especially, in the absence of a currency, there are other things have value, like a good bed or a good bunk or being in a good unit or a good range. So obviously you start at the bottom, you're in the worst one. So I was in the young, loud, obnoxious one, and I slept with with like earplugs, like the first few nights. And eventually, I got used to the noise, and I would read a lot.
Is it just people being wild at night?
Yeah,
and
wild and
screaming?
crazy and stupid, just being stupid all night. It's like being dumb. And then after that, I started I was able to move to a different range, and that was a little bit quieter, and moved to a whole different building actually, which was awesome. And I had a really good bunkie who was the imam of the Muslim community in prison. And so we had a very good relationship because we respected each other and we talked a lot and got to know. I got an immense knowledge of Islam during that experience. Hopefully he got an immense knowledge of Judaism too. And we always talk about our different religions and stuff. And him and I becoming friends because he was my first cellie or bunkie. There were a lot of other inmates gave me a lot of respect. Like I immediately had, because if he accepted me, he was the leader of this whole community. So because of that, I instantly was friends with the Muslim community. And it's not that like Muslim Brotherhood bullshit, like the fake, these are like devout Muslim community. Like it's different. There's two Muslim communities in prison. There's that Farrakhan guy, you know Farrakhan?
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
He has this whole like Muslim Brotherhood like thing. And then you have Islam. It's two separate religions. In a prison, they're two separate religions. Like they're designated two separate religions according to the prison administration.
Because one's fanatical.
One's fanatical and the other ones are just awesome people. And they would invite me to like their dinners and stuff, and they'd make me like gyros and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It was really nice.
I'm not sure whether a Jewish guy and a fanatical Muslim guy would have been a good match.
No, that wouldn't have been. The Farrakhan's crazy.
Yeah.
He's nuts. But no, we were good friends. We were close for a while. Yeah, every Muslim I know is just a great person. And him and I lived together for a year, so we obviously became extremely close because you can learn the habits of these people. And a good bunkie is one that takes a shower at different times than you, or needs to have the privacy of the cell at different times, or you learn to not wake him up. If I get up early in the morning, I would become like a mouse. Like I like to wake up at 5:30, and he liked to wake up a little bit later. But I knew how to wake up and being on the top bunk, not wake him up. I would prepare all my stuff the night before, and I'd take it all with me and go like change in the bathroom. This way, I'd not let him wake up. And it's respect.
Okay.
It's respect. It's respect in prison is the most valuable currency. Having the respect of others and respecting other people.
How much freedom did you have to go in and out of your cell then?
You have pretty much between morning and night, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. Because it was a lower risk prison?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like in the films or
No,
the
you don't
programs,
spend...
lock them down and...
No, only overnight.
Okay. I always thought if I ever ended up in prison, even though I wouldn't do it, I'd be trying to... almost as like a way to pass time, figure out how I would escape. That would be on my mind. I'd be thinking Shawshank Redemption.
In my prison, it wouldn't be very hard because there are no fences or gates.
Okay.
You're on 5,000 acres. You could literally walk off. I mean, there are guards and stuff, but it's not. They're not sitting there watching with rifles, but why would you want to leave?
It's only going to get worse.
Anyone who's in my prison has less than 10 years, and if you leave and get caught, they will catch you. By the way, they've never not caught anyone. Like in the history of America, they've always caught the person. But you get automatic time added to your sentence. So why would you do that?
So there's two interactions you and I have had together on Twitter previous to arranging this.
I told you to go fuck yourself.
Your first time you told me fuck that guy when
fuck that guy.
Yeah, with Crypto Cobain, where I completely misunderstood.
I say that about everyone.
Yeah,
Courtney's like the mailman's here. Fuck that guy.
Well, we actually had discussed and agreed to an interview.
Okay, cool.
And
why don't we do it?
Well, we've done it now.
Okay.
But this was like a year ago, and something, I don't know, with Crypto Cobain, and he retweeted, and then you were like, oh, fuck that guy. And you were both right. I actually got to know him a little bit better.
Yeah, he's
now.
a nice guy.
Yeah, we're friends now. We're Twitter friends. There was another time, though, we had an interaction. And the other time was where there was a discussion about something, and somebody...
On Twitter?
On Twitter.
Okay.
Had... I don't know if it was me or somebody else, but it was a thread we were both in, and somebody had said, I hope you end up in jail, or something along those kind of lines. And then you came in and you said, You don't want to wish that on anyone. You've got no fucking idea how bad it is.
Yes, I did say that.
Yeah.
And I hate when people throw that term around lightly, because I would never wish prison on my worst enemy. It is, no matter how long you spend in there, whether it's 6 months or 6 years, it fundamentally changes you, who you are physically and mentally. And for me, thankfully, it was for the better. But I suffer from PTSD. I've been diagnosed. I go to therapy. We both go to therapy. Once a week, we take breaks, but we do it. Physically, I saw a lot of doctors after my stomach got fucked up. You're eating expired food for a year. It just fucks with you. It fucks with you mentally. It changes who you are. You become institutionalized. You like it in there. People like it in there. I had a friend that was getting released, and he was in there with me he was there for 26 years, and he cried on my shoulder because he had no idea what to expect in the outside world. I was terrified for the guy. Imagine that. Imagine 26 years being in prison and getting out and having to compete in the world.
Yeah, because you're in a system, right, in the prison.
You have free food. You have a good place to live. You have respect of your peers. You don't have to work. I mean, you work. You have a job in there, it's fulfilling work, but you don't work for. You work for extra money. Food and all that other stuff is given to you.
But that's
Shelter.
another kind of famous scene in the Shawshank Redemption. With
Yeah,
the
the
old
guy
guy
killed himself, yeah.
he gets released, and
I have a lot of friends that went back. They did something stupid and went back.
because they wanted to.
Well, they wanted to. They just didn't know how to live a legal life.
Yeah.
When you go back out of jail and you're out and your old friend comes down the road and says, hey, man, good to see you. Hey, by the way, if you want to sell some coke on the side for a few extra $1,000 a week, are you going to, and you just got out of jail, you're like, fuck yeah, I need money. You don't work as a dishwasher for $8 an hour. All you got to do is sell a little bit of coke. You're good to go.
So talk me about the things that change you in prison and why. What you say mentally and physically?
Yeah, I mean, in prison you learn to be able to sit by yourself and not be afraid to do that, because you have there would be long stretches of hours where I would say, you want to stay very busy. You want to stay as busy as possible. So you keep yourself busy. You do stuff. I'd have my nightly card game with a bunch of guys that I was friends with. I play cards with them every night, play spades from after dinner from 6 to 9. And then from 9 to 10, I would sit with another group of friends and chat. And then at 10 o'clock, I was in my bed and go to sleep. Every hour in prison, I would plan. I would wake up in the morning at 5:30. I knew it'd take me exactly from 5:30 to 5:45. I would brush my teeth and get dressed. 5:45 to 6 o'clock, I would call Courtney, because the phones would turn on at 6 a.m. So 6 a.m. from 6 to 6:15, I'd be the first one. There's only 3 phones for hundreds of inmates. I'd be the first one on the phone. I called Courtney. You only get 10 minutes a day of phone time. So you have to use 10 minutes total.
So Courtney had to be up.
So we had a system. Yeah, I would call her up and she'd be sleeping. I would say, good morning, I love you. We only use a minute. You time it. Only use a minute. And then we'd use more of our minutes for lunch and dinner time, but just to say good morning, tell her I survived the night. Would do that, and then I went to breakfast, and I'd also go to computers to check my emails. You had these like fake email system, and then everything was planned. But I would pre-plan multiple hours to just sit by myself and think. You have a lot of time to do that and read. I read 137 books in prison.
Holy shit.
Yes, that's. I want one book every 2 or 3 days. I would have a book everywhere with me. I would literally carry a paperback in my pocket. No joke, everywhere. Because you never know when you're gonna have downtime. You'd be on a bus, or you'd be sitting around, or you'd be in work. And I worked at landscaping, but I had so much downtime. I just read, and think and write.
In terms of the jobs available, are these jobs where you're doing work outsourced for companies?
No. So there's a few different types of jobs that you can do. It depends on your security level. Obviously, I was the lowest security, so I had to do more jobs. But I had first I worked in education, so I taught students to take their GED, to take their tests. I had a bunch of students of mine pass.
That's cool.
Yeah. I got boring very quickly.
Right. Okay.
So I moved to landscaping. There was another prison about 20-minute drive away that needed lower security inmates to maintain the grounds. It was 5,000 acres. So me and like 10 or 12 other guys got on a little van every day, driven by another inmate. We had to leave the prison. No money, no phones, nothing. You couldn't stop. Drive to the other prison, and we had it was like a little gas station, which where's our office and our garage, and they trained me how to drive this like street sweeper thing. And during the wintertime, the street sweeper was retrofitted with this plow, and I would plow snow. And I would plow snow, and I would drop salt, and that was my job. I just drove in the roads for hours, plow snow.
Was that like a good escape?
Yeah, it was great because I didn't have to be around other inmates. The hardest, the best commodity is silence, and it's very difficult to get silence in prison.
How much bullshit did you have to deal with?
A lot,
other inmates?
all the time, every
Okay.
day. Bullshit, stress, bullshit, annoying people, constant other inmates, it's administration. You just got to deal with bullshit. You have to learn to bite your tongue. So what I learned, humility. You learn how to bite your tongue. You learn how to just take it. You think trolling is bad on Twitter? There's nothing in prison. Those people are professional trolls. They trained me how to troll, and you don't want me to start trolling you because I will be vicious.
What, just personal attacks?
Personal attacks.
Mental breakdown?
Mental breakdowns. I saw someone die.
Okay.
I saw someone run into a wall and die. Like crazy shit.
Because they'd had
He was
too
on
much?
drugs.
Okay, right.
He took a synthetic weed and it was laced with shit.
But I'm guessing not everyone in prison was bad.
No, not everyone in prison was bad. There was a lot of good. I had a lot of friends, acquaintances, friends, people that I was very close with. But the administration would set you up to not be friends with these people. They would like force you guys to like hate on each other. They had all this mental stuff going on.
Okay.
It was crazy.
Was there much violence?
Not really.
Okay. I guess because, again, lower risk prison, so it's just more, just crazy people.
Yeah, no one wanted to leave. Everyone liked it. I saw someone sitting like 3 chairs away from me in the TV room, and a guy walked in with a sock with a lock in it, like a master lock, and just whacked him right in the head.
Okay.
That was crazy.
Yeah. That's not great to see, though.
No, I never got into any fights. I didn't have it. No one disliked me. I had some guys in there who just didn't like me from first judgments, maybe because I symbolized something that they didn't like. Other than that, you stay away from those people. Other than that, I didn't really have any issues with anyone.
Okay. And what is it like in terms of the guards? Were they okay with you?
Some of them are okay. They're all,
But are there assholes who want to fight?
Oh, yeah. There's some assholes that would plant shit on people and fight. And you just want to stay off the radar. Stay out of the way. You don't want them to know your names. You don't want them to know who you are. You just do your time. Just stay away.
And how prevalent were drugs in the prison?
With money, you can get anything you want.
It always amazes me, though. Like, it still amazes me that it's that easy to get drugs. Yeah, how do they
Two
get it?
ways. Guards would smuggle it in for them. And the second way is they'd have runners. They'd have people that would literally, they coordinate with another person on the outside to fill up a duffel bag with a bunch of drugs and alcohol and stuff. And then they'd leave it off the side of the highway somewhere. And then an inmate would literally escape, go get the stuff, and then come back.
Because it's an open prison.
Because it's an open prison.
Right.
Between like counts. Because they do count. Every 4 hours they do a count. And you have to stop where you are and they'd come around and count, make sure everyone's there.
Were people doing that stuff where they make alcohol in the prison as well?
Not in my prison. Or
Not in
anything.
your prison. Okay.
We make other stuff. We make like food and stuff.
Okay.
I make a lot of food in prison.
Because the food's terrible?
It's terrible. I can make a cheesecake in a microwave. Make a lot of shit. No, I'm not giving my recipes.
No. Don't give
Start a
away.
whole podcast of prison recipes.
Yeah, you should do that.
Yeah.
What were the treats in there? What was
What do you mean treats?
like? What were the good things? Like
We're not dogs.
Like would Courtney visit and be able to bring you a bag of
No.
Twinkies and shit?
No.
No. So
In the visiting room, there were these vending machines that you had to put money in, and your visitor was allowed to bring money. And then what you'd do is you'd basically, I couldn't touch the money or the machine, but your visitor could. And they had these machines that they sold microwavable like cheeseburgers. So that's our thing was when she'd visit, we'd get a cheeseburger from the microwave, from the vending machine, and we put like Doritos in it and then eat it. And that would be like amazing. Like, best burger of my life. Yeah, those jalapeno burgers were like fucking bomb.
and you would get to have dinner together.
Yeah, we had to have dinner together, which was great.
But the food itself was terrible because no money goes into it?
Some of it was good, some of it was bad. It was all expired, spoiled shit. But inmates ran the kitchen. So if you had a good chef, then you'd have good food.
Okay.
And there was some good stuff. I ate some pretty good meals in there, but relative. Like I wouldn't eat it now; it'd be disgusting. But I was in there.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Okay, and so time moves on.
It moves very quickly. Yeah, it moves quickly.
Okay. Months start passing.
In jail, time moves very quick. Every day is the same. So your schedule never changes. Like every day is the same. So you just count weekends. You look forward to the weekends. Those are when the visits are and things are chill, you know. But time just moves fast. I played in sports leagues in there. I was in a ultimate frisbee league, so I played sports. Played twice a week. Worked out every day. Lost a lot of weight. Got jacked. Ate very well. Played a lot of cards. Yeah.
And then I guess you get through the first year, and you're like, 6 months to go.
So I was lucky. I only served 1 year in there, and then the other 6 months I lived in a halfway house.
Okay.
So I only did 1 year in that prison.
Did you know that was going to be the case?
No, not till towards like the end.
Okay, so that was a bit of a bonus then.
That was great. I participated in a program called the Residential Drug Abuse Program. It's like cognitive behavior therapy combined with AA, where the goal is not to make you not an alcoholic or a drug addict. The goal is to make you free of your criminal personality. So there's this mental stuff going on.
Your criminal personality.
It's like stuff you see in movies. It's like literally experiment. So the government invented this experimental behavior therapy treatment, where it was and the bonus by doing it is that you get to like take 6 months off your sentence and stay in a halfway house instead of in the prison.
Which is obviously a lot better. Right?
Yeah. And so, actually the halfway house sucked, but whatever.
Right, okay.
But yeah, so I participated in that program, and the program was terrible. Like, it's really bad. RDAP.
Just what fucks with your head?
Fucks with your head. Fucks with you, fucks with your head. You have to live in these you have to live in these specialized units that are for only other RDAP people. It was crazy.
And you get to the end. Have you talked about it this much before? Am I asking more than anyone else?
No, you are. I think you are, yeah.
I find it's
fascinating.
It is fascinating. It's fascinating to hear from both of you, though. Okay, but I'm getting to the end of it. So you're aware that you've got this opportunity. What is it? A month to go? 2 months to go?
No, I did it all like half a year in.
Okay, so you got a 6 month countdown.
Yeah, you did this whole program. The last like month and a half is the slowest freaking month, because
I bet
time just stops, and every day it seems like it's like the longest day ever, because you're really on your way out. You have a month left. You're on your way out.
And does it get progressively slower?
Yes, the last week is like the slowest week ever, and you're so close to getting out. There's a lot of prison bullshit and drama, like just bullshit and drama, because you're living with hundreds of other criminals who have nothing better to do than to just
fuck with you,
just be dramatic about stuff. So something that would just be so simple and stupid would just explode in prison. It would just be like the most dramatic thing. Yeah, so gossipy. So as your time is almost done, you just kind of stay out of the way, because you don't want anything to risk. There are people that would like do things to risk you not getting out, like plant shit on you and stuff.
Fuckers.
So I would just hide in the corner and just read and stay away from people.
Right.
I just didn't want to like risk it.
And then obviously you get to your day where you're released.
Yep. Woke up, had breakfast.
Is there like a routine? Do people celebrate you leaving? Do they?
They do. They threw a party.
Okay.
They threw me a little party. It was nice. I had my group of guys that I was really friends with, and we had a nice like dinner and like a goodbye party. And it's sad because these are your best friends, and like I'll see you on the outside. And I had some friends who got released a few months after me, and they called me up and stuff like that. And it's sad. It's a very sad thing, because you're leaving your family, and you're getting out, but they're not, and it's not fair.
Have you stayed in touch with any of them?
Some people you can't really, because they just go back to bad things,
Right. Okay.
And
you don't want to ever go back?
No, never. And so it's sad, but that morning you wake up and everyone's happy for you, and they throw you like a nice little party and stuff. And I remember going to so many parties for people who were like gonna leave, and it was nice to have my own. When I mean party, it's like everyone's having dinner together and potato chips and drinking soda, and that's like the party, And so that morning I walked. I had all my stuff packed, and I have a box. I have a box in the garage of all my stuff, and you basically you go into the discharge room.
See the guy again.
You see the guy again. He prepares you, and Courtney was late. They were late. So I
She
was
told
like,
me.
yeah. I was like, I'm not getting out today, am I? And so it wasn't on purpose. It was traffic. And then all of a sudden, they said, like, you're free to go. Go out the door. And you literally just like...
Is it like a moment?
You walk out the door, and as soon as you walk out that door and you're in the parking lot, you realize that everything that just happened in there was just bullshit.
Is there any kind of like weird feeling like it almost didn't happen, or is it indelibly in your mind as an experience, or is it this like surreal thing like, fuck, I was in prison, like...
Oh no, it happened.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind. I'll never forget that experience. It was just crazy.
So you get out, you see Courtney.
Drive to the gas station, change out of my clothes, put jeans on, and it was great.
Get a Snickers.
Get a Snickers.
Hello, Courtney.
Hello, Peter.
Thank you for inviting me in your home.
No problem.
I've got a few.
Pleasure.
I've got a few questions for you as well, because obviously we've touched on the prison story, and I think it would be good to hear what it was like for you as an experience. So I've just got a few questions. The first one is around when Charlie first got arrested.
Mm-hmm.
He's taken away.
Yeah.
What airport are you at?
I was in York, Pennsylvania.
York, Pennsylvania. At that airport.
What's that?
Is that the airport?
Oh, no,
you're-
JFK is
JFK.
where it happened.
So
yeah.
they take him away, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was traumatized. I was crying hysterically. I just couldn't even imagine what was like happening. I just couldn't. I was like, and then I was questioning Charlie. I was like, what the fuck did you do? Like, what happened? Like, is there something you're not telling me? Like, but we were both caught so off guard that we had no idea what was going on.
But they take him away.
Mm-hmm.
You don't speak to him till the next day, or do they give him a call?
He got one phone call that he was able to call me.
So he gets
to
hold
let
of
me
you.
know.
Right.
And I just couldn't sleep.
Yeah, I
that
bet.
night.
What an
Like,
awful evening that
Oh,
must have
it
been.
was horrible. It was horrible. Just the fact that like he was telling me he's okay, but he couldn't tell me anything else, and he couldn't tell me where he was. He couldn't, and that was like the scariest part too. That I didn't know where he was physically, and so yeah, it was a very, very horrible experience.
And when did you then next see him? Did he call you and say, okay, they're releasing me, can you come and get me? What happened?
I got a hold of his company lawyer, and was able to basically tell them what was going on and kind of just get him help in that aspect. I saw Charlie probably about, I want to say like, it was a good 3 to 4 days before I could see him.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
fuck.
we didn't know what was going on.
So, terrible few days,
Absolutely.
not knowing what's going on, not knowing when he's coming back. You finally see him again.
Yeah.
And then I guess you have to then live that next 2 years
Yep.
during the essentially the lawsuit. What was that like for you
I
on
was
your
with
side?
him when he was during the house arrest. So
Okay.
he got the house arrest. He paid bail. Somebody bailed him out, and then he was on house arrest, and then we got to move in together. But before that, he went back to his parents' basement, and he had to hide our relationship from his parents because I'm not an Orthodox Jew.
Okay.
So I wasn't accepted in that aspect, and so basically I was a secret for
Okay.
a very long time.
Okay. But then he does end up moving in with you.
Eventually.
What are the rules of the house arrest? Like, did he have to send you down to the shop?
We had to be in by 9 o'clock at
Okay.
night.
But he would send you down to the 7-Eleven if he needed something.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he was allowed to leave. Like we had a certain amount of time during the day that we could be, away, but we had to be back in the house at 9 p.m. every
Okay.
night.
Okay. All right. So you live through the experience of him going to court,
Yeah.
potentially facing up to 30 years.
Yep.
How was that for you? I mean, obviously terrible, but like emotionally, mentally, how was that for you?
I'll never forget when I was at the arraignment. It was my mom and my brother and his wife now on one side of the courtroom, and then it was his Orthodox community. It wasn't even just immediate family. It was like the whole community on the other side of the courtroom. And then there was reporters and so forth. And all I remember is like Charlie's fate is being decided. And it was just really hard for me and more stressful than ever, because not being, accepted into that community, it was about me in that courtroom, and it should have been about him. And that's what frustrated me and made me more bitter about the whole situation. And we honestly didn't expect him to have any jail time. We thought it was just going to be more house arrest. And I mean, his lawyers were like, you're just going to do house arrest. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And then it was such a haze for me, like when that happened, because all that court talk, it's just one ear and out the other. It was kind of like I couldn't really
Legal
grasp
speak.
what physically was happening.
Yeah.
And then when I found out that he was, going to jail, our whole life was turned upside down. It was horrible.
Okay, so he gets sentenced. He has 2 or 3 months. It sounds like he ignored it, but I'm going to go out on a whim here and say you didn't, like
No.
he did.
No.
Yeah.
I will say his attitude helped me get through it as well, because if he didn't keep it together, I wouldn't have kept it together.
Okay.
And so I think we really helped each other in that aspect of keeping it together. And I mean, it's the only thing we could do,
It's funny, as I was talking earlier, you heard me talking about having the 24 hours before the interview is really helpful.
Yeah.
But it's also helped with the interview. I've been observing you two from a distance, the bickering and real love between you. But the real love's, it's really amazing to see, actually. I really like the way, I don't know if you guys know how often you tell each other you love each other. You it's constantly.
I mean, people joke around about how much we tell each other, but yeah. I
You
guess
tell
it's
each
a
other
lot.
all the time.
Yeah.
It could be like, honey, I'm getting something from the fridge. Do you want anything? I love you. Yeah. So look, it's obviously made you stronger, which is
Absolutely.
amazing. But anyway, so he goes to prison. You have 18 months without him. Again, obviously shit, but talk me through what it was like living that from your side.
Well, it was terrifying because, if there was a storm or something, he would be on lockdown. So I wouldn't hear from him. And we were able to email through the government, email or whatever. And then there was only, a certain amount of time that we could speak a day, without going over his time. Or if we would go over our minutes, there was a time that we didn't talk for, 12 days, which was horrible. But it's one of those things, the unknown is what scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
It's just, he's in this horrible place and I have no control of finding out, what's going on. And that was the hardest part for me.
And were you worried for his safety?
Absolutely. Especially when you watch these TV shows.
Yeah, they're awful.
It's horrible.
Yeah, they're
it's
awful.
Horrible.
Gangs and violence.
And that's another thing. When I would get those, emails, I would be relieved. I would be constantly stressed out. Even though he was physically in there, I felt like I was physically in there because I was living day to day through him, but not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was a sentence for both of you. Obviously, his sentence is
Absolutely.
different because he's in prison, but your life equally
My
is
life
on
was
hold.
on hold, just like his life was on hold, but just we were in different places.
Talk me through the kind of progression of time. Was it really slow to begin with, or did the first month go quick, or was the ending quick? Or did the whole thing?
In the very
slow?
beginning, it was very, very, very slow. But like I said, with Charlie's attitude, it helped a lot. And I just commend him a million times because I just can't even imagine being in the position that he was in, how positive he was. And that's just what makes me fall in love with him even more because nothing keeps him down, and he's so inspiring that way. And in the beginning, it was very, very, very difficult because of the unknown, like I said. It was just very hard. And when I wouldn't talk to him or I wouldn't hear an email or so forth. And then towards the middle, he was like, telling me more about his experiences, how he would have like a special dinner, like, you know, with the inmates and so forth. And so because he sounded so positive, it made me feel a little bit more relief.
Okay.
And it made me feel like he was okay.
Okay.
I don't know if that was a facade to make me feel better or if he actually physically, you know, felt that.
And then the last month and week
And then we were both counting down the days.
Yeah.
It was very, 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 very slow.
and the day he was released.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, my mom and I went to go pick him up, and he was literally in the middle of the parking lot with his box in his hand. And it had all his belongings in it. And I melted down. I was like, oh my gosh, he looks so cute. But I felt so bad because we were late because of traffic. And he was like, I was afraid you
were
weren't
late.
coming
You were
back."
late for his release from prison.
It was traffic.
That's such a typical woman thing to do, right?
But
Yeah.
anyway.
You
so
were doing your makeup.
we
Come on.
literally went to the gas station, and he was like, I just want to burn these clothes. So we went to the gas station. I brought him a change of clothes. He changed into his clothes and got rid of his, you know, uniform, and off we went.
All right. So this is the first time I've had to record so much. We've split it into
Morning.
two sessions. So morning, Charlie. So where we left off yesterday was you'd come out of prison, you'd burnt your clothes, and then you were going to a halfway house, and that was worse than prison.
Yeah.
So fill in the gaps for me there.
Well, in prison, you're in a prison that's categorized by various security levels. You have camps, you have lows, mediums, maximums, super maximums, and then like Guantanamo Bay, where in a halfway house you're bunched in with everyone, state and federal prison. All people living in a halfway house together. So you're with murderers and bank robbers and rapists and child molesters and everyone.
That sounds terrible.
The food is better though.
The food is better. But how does the halfway house operate? Is it just a house where you have a bedroom each?
It's like usually like an old state prison, so it's pretty much another prison, or it's like a crack motel in a really bad neighborhood. And the way it works is that it's a secure location, so you can't leave. And so the first week you get there, you're on lockdown. You just can't leave the place. And then after that, if you can get a job, then they let you go out for work. And then as long as you're working and being on time and stuff like that, when you get your first paycheck, usually 2 weeks later, when you get your first paycheck, you give it to them, and then you get some of it back, but you give them the paycheck, you get some of the money back, and then, so you're basically working for free because they're taking most of your paycheck.
to pay for the halfway house.
To pay for whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's paying for. And then you get some of the money back, and then they start giving you like, you can go home for 8 hours, a week. You have to go home for 8 hours. Then if you do that and you're successful and you show back up to the halfway house on time, the next week they give you go home for 12 hours. And then if that works out, the week after that, you can go home for 24 hours. And if that works out, then you go home for 48 hours and come back. And then after that, usually about like halfway through, so then you could actually move home 100%. And then just show up to the halfway house twice a week for like a check-in and a drug test.
So it's like they're weaning you off the prison system.
That's what they do, yeah. But you really need to have like a job set up and a family and people like support you to keep you out of like the whole criminal lifestyle world.
Okay.
It's very difficult. Most people end up going back to prison.
Yeah, I guess for you it's different because you didn't really come from a criminal background, whereas some of these people may be career criminals, or they may be.
I had like a support system on the outside to help me get back into it, so I was able to like get back in and have a job. I worked at a restaurant as a dishwasher, ran food to a food runner, and it was a great job. I loved it.
What was it like in the halfway house itself?
If you're looking in and you're just going from your regular life and then having to stay in a halfway house, it would be like crazy, because you have to condition yourself. But I was coming from prison, so I was like, all right, turn on prison mode back on. So I'm conditioned to it. So you have to adapt your body. Adapting to prison's the same way. When you're in there, you're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, how am I going to keep busy? How am I going to pass my time? How am I going to deal with these people? But our bodies are very good at adapting. So within a few days, you've adapted to the prison lifestyle. And you learn how to laugh and to have fun and how to enjoy your life again in that lifestyle. Some people can't. Some people get severely depressed. But you just get adapted to the lifestyle. The thing is, you're so appreciative because you're not in a prison somewhere in the middle of nowhere. You're in the middle of a city. You're closer to your family. You can go out for work, and the food's better, and it doesn't feel like you're in a prison anymore. And there's no guards. There's no COs in the halfway house.
But doesn't that put you at more risk than if you're surrounded by kind of the worst criminals?
Yeah, sure. That's why other criminals go back in. The halfway house system doesn't work. They should put you on house arrest instead, or put an ankle bracelet on you and have you monitored in your home, or you're out and about like through house arrest. That's how they should be doing it. Halfway houses don't work.
But do people fuck with you in the halfway house as well? They're giving you shit?
Oh yeah, worse.
Worse, okay.
A halfway house is a lot easier to get away with stuff. In prison, you have to be right. You have to be lucky every day. They just have to be lucky once. In the halfway house, it's very easy to get away with stuff. Like you see drugs and cigarettes, alcohol are blatant right there. But if they catch you, then you're screwed. You go back to prison. So it's very difficult. And also in the halfway house, the people there, they have a lot less respect, because when you're in prison, everyone has to have respect for each other. So there's like this common respect, like you don't play loud music, you're not loud. If you're loud at night, you get your ass kicked. In the halfway house, we have like murderers with people like me, so there's no respect. Everyone does what the fuck they want.
What did you do? Just keep yourself to yourself?
You keep to yourself. They put me in a room with bunk beds with a bunch of other people. There was one guy who, his name was Bones. He
already sounds scary. Sounds
he
like
was a really nice guy.
Right.
We were talking, and he was a little standoff. He would learn how to like communicate with these people. You gotta like, you show up and you just don't say anything for a while. You let a few days go by, and they see that you're like pretty normal. You're not like a child molester. You're not obnoxious, and you're not mean. You're not stupid, and you have respect for them. And then eventually you can start communicating. After a few days, we started communicating, and I'd say like, I'm going to the vending machine. Do you want anything? Or I say like, when are you going to shower? So I'll leave the room so you can change. Like you just start offering respect, but you can't be like a wuss about it. You can't like be like you're giving in. You got to just show respect. And you say, hey, I'll say like this, for example, say, hey, I'm planning on taking a shower at 6. When are you showering? I'll leave the room for you. So I'm implying that I want him to leave the room for me.
Yeah.
There's like you have to like do that. You got to stand your ground in prison. You can't give in. And it's not like in a mean and aggressive way. It's just be assertive. If there's anything you learn in prison, it's being assertive. You have to learn how to be assertive. Stand your ground, don't give in, and don't whatever. And so in the halfway house, so this guy, like, I talked to him and I said, what do you do? Well, we were just laughing one day, and I was like, what did you do? He was like, I robbed banks. I was like, really? Like, is that I thought that's like in movies. Like, I don't know actually people did that nowadays. Were you good at it? I ended up in prison. But he was nice enough. But that room was still like, there were a bunch of obnoxious kids. Like, when I mean kids, like I was like 27 at that point. You had 19, 20-year-olds. And you don't want kids are the worst, because they feel like they walk around like their shit don't stink. And they're whatever. But eventually, because I was working a very stable job and my shift was in the morning and I was giving the halfway house their money, they moved me into this other room, which had like 6 bunk beds, but it was only like half full. So only 3 of the beds were taken, including me. And this room was called the workers' room. And it was only for like the best behaved people in the halfway house, and best behaved ones, the ones who worked really long shifts and whatever. And we had our own bathroom in that room. So that was a pretty big deal. And so I was able to sleep really well and be to myself.
And I guess you gradually did your time here in the halfway house, got more and more time with Courtney, got more and more time to establish yourself. And then you get to the point where you're released from that.
Yeah.
And how long were you having to still check into the halfway house? It was a 6-month program.
6-month process from start to finish.
So when that ends, what happens after that?
Eventually your release day comes. and you go to the halfway house for the final checkout, and then you're free. And then you have a probation officer usually like in the capital city of whatever state you're in. He'll call you up. He'll just say, you're on probation. These are the conditions of your release. Congratulations, you made it. Don't do anything stupid. Don't be any criminal. Maintain your job if you can. And I'll call you in for random drug tests. And if you want to travel outside the state, let me know.
Okay. So that seems kind of reasonable.
Yeah, for most people, it's reasonable.
How long is that for?
Everyone's different. I had 3 years. Some
So you
people
got
have
3
5,
years?
some people have 1.
Oh, wow. So 3 years probation. You have the random drugs tests. You're allowed to drink?
Yeah.
Any other conditions, weird conditions?
You have to report any communication with a police officer to your probation officer. So if you get like pulled over for a speeding ticket, you got to let them know.
Okay. And the probation itself was it you said you got 2 months left now?
Yeah, I have 2 months left.
And what happens, say if something was to happen, say you got drunk and got in a fight and got arrested, does that mean you've broken your probation?
That's a good question. The probation officers have a lot of leeway
Okay.
when it comes to this stuff. So I have a pristine record for the past 3 years almost. And so if I were to fuck up, and not that I would, like get into a bar fight like you said, then I would immediately let him know. And I'm sure there would be some repercussions, but I don't think I'd go back to prison. Now, if I took drugs, I failed the drug test, they give you one warning. If you take drugs again, then you'd have to serve out the remainder of your probation in prison.
Right, so that could have been 3 years at the very start.
Yeah.
For now, it'd be a couple of months.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting when we went out for dinner last night and hearing you talk about a real fear of get into any situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I exit from situations. If people are being loud, if I'm being loud, if anyone's looking at me, I need to exit the situation. I have a problem with police in general. So if there's a police boat coming down the canal or a police car driving by or looking at me the wrong way, I just immediately break out in sweats. I have this big problem. My therapist told me that I need to humanize the police. So if I can, I'm supposed to walk over to them and just start talking to them, ask them how their day's doing.
You did that yesterday
Yeah.
when we saw the guy who was on the floor arrested.
Yeah.
There was another police officer, and you said hello to the police officer.
No, there was a
first.
police officer the other night just in the street by the bar we were at.
Yeah.
And we walked by, and I was like, "Good evening, officer," and I waved, and he waved back. I'm supposed to do that. It makes me feel better.
Okay.
Because there was a time where I couldn't even drive by a police station. I couldn't, I couldn't even walk into an airport. I have really bad PTSD.
Right. Okay. Because
I was arrested at an airport.
Right. Okay.
Even nowadays, going to an airport still sets off like I'm not settled and comfortable. I can't be comfortable, which sucks because I used to love airports.
Yeah.
The energy in an airport is great. Everyone is always having a good time.
I'm the same with weddings.
Well, yeah, there you go. You have PTSD. Same situation.
I can't. I've been to two weddings since my breakup, and one I left early, and the other I kind of stayed. But I can't. I don't like them.
Yeah.
They make me feel crap. If they're on the telly, I have to turn them off.
Really?
Yeah. I have a very, very similar thing. I tried a therapy thing. It didn't really work for me though. It worked for you.
You
Doesn't
have
work.
to be someone who wears their emotion on their sleeves. It's easier.
I do
I'm a very
that.
emotional person.
Yeah.
And so when I go to therapy, I just let it all out. Because my thing is, if I got all these problems inside, with a good therapist at least, not the ones you see on TV, but like a good one, at least when you're talking to them, they're bearing the brunt of your problems now at least. So it's like you're offloading it a little bit. And it helps.
So you've got 2 months left.
Yeah.
Once that 2 months passes, is there anything else that happens after that, or is that it?
I'm still a felon.
Of course.
For life.
Yeah.
I can't vote. Well, I actually got my voting rights back.
Hold on. You can't vote if you're a felon.
No, but in Florida, they just passed a law last year giving felons the right to vote back.
Yeah, I think in the UK you can't vote whilst you're in prison. I'd have to double check that,
No.
but I think while you're in prison. But once
I
you're
can't
out,
own a gun. I can't
ever?
I can never do jury duty.
that's kind of a bonus.
Yeah,
really.
that's a bonus.
Yeah, thanks.
I get the letter in the mail and it's like automatic disqualification. I'm a convicted felon. I was like,
Nobody
check
wants
box.
nobody ever wants jury duty.
No, do you have jury duty in the UK?
We do.
How
I've
does
never,
that work?
I've never had it.
But how does that work?
It comes in the post, and you have to do it as a civic duty. Is it civic duty? I think
Yeah,
it's called a civic duty.
yeah.
And you have to do it unless you've got a good reason not to. So, for example, say you have a work trip booked and it's all paid for, you defer it.
Oh,
So you can defer it.
yeah,
But
you can defer it to here.
Yeah, I've never had it. I know it will come.
If you don't show up, they issue like a warrant out for your arrest, like a bench warrant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Like the police won't go after you, but if you get pulled over for a speeding ticket and they pull up your name, then you're gonna get arrested. Just show up to the judge and basically tell him why you didn't go to jury duty. It's just a pain in the ass.
All right. So once your probation's done, there's a few things you can't do, but they're not that big a deal, right?
No, you can pretty much live your life. You leave the country, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. Is that an important date to you?
Yeah,
But do you think it will change anything?
yeah.
What it will change for
Mentally, because right
Okay.
now I'm still under the jurisdiction of like my life is being held, my balls are in someone else's hand. So right now, like my life is in the hands of someone else. So if someone else doesn't, probation officer doesn't like me, and then luckily I've had really good ones, or if the judge doesn't like me, then they can do something, they can screw up my life.
you? But for you,
You don't have rights when you're on probation.
right. Okay.
You don't have due process.
But
They can pull you in for anything.
it sounds to me though, with you, that the punishment has been a deterrent for committing crimes in the future, which is
For me or for other people?
for you.
Yeah, for me, of course, but was it a deterrent for other people is the question.
Well, it's not, because some people don't care about prison, right? Or some people accept.
No,
their,
the point is that you can make the case that people go to jail as a deterrent for other people to commit the same crimes. It's not for you. Like, prison is supposed to be a deterrence for other people to do the same crime.
but it isn't. I spoke to Lynn Albrecht a lot about the US prison system, and she's now. Her work's become more than just about Ross.
Sure.
She's become a campaigner
Sure.
against the US prison system, because she says it's really a business, and there's no real incentive to rehabilitate people because it is a business.
There's no rehabilitation that goes on in prison. There's like no vocational training.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, there's a little bit, but nothing on a real level.
But
there's
she was saying to me, there's two problems I remember her telling me about.
Yeah, there's a big lobby group. It's an
Yeah.
industry. You have the guards. You have, and it's easier. It's just someone does something, you send them to prison. Have a nice day.
But also you get very cheap labor from the prisons.
Oh yeah. So you were asking me what jobs you could do yesterday, and basically, every prison has something called a Unicore, and when I worked as like in landscaping, you earn like $80 a month, which is a decent salary. Education, you only earn like $40 a month. In Unicore, you can earn $300-400 a month. Now, it's a lot of money in prison because you can only spend $100 or something a week in the commissary anyways. So if you're a billionaire on the outside, doesn't matter how much money you have, you still can't spend it. Everyone's the same. So when you work in Unicore, you actually have the ability to earn more money and then spend it in prison, at the commissary, whatever you want. Unicore is called Prison Industries. And basically what that is every prison has one or two or three. And they're basically factories where the inmates work for $300 a month. So $100 a week or whatever it is, or less than that, $80 a week. And they do things. So all the furniture you see at any federal building is built by a prison inmate at a prison. The computer systems, basically it's all the labor that's being done for the federal government is being done by inmates.
Kind of slave labor?
I mean, you tell me you can't leave. You're in the prison. You're being incentivized by better money. But they're not, the conditions aren't bad. Like, it's safe. People like working in Unicore. Inmates like it. It's hard to get a job there. Like, it's not hard to get a job there, but it's hard to get the coveted ones. I had friends that worked in an upholstery factory for Unicore. And they just upholstered chairs and stuff. You can work in basically like you have to take apart old prison Blackberries, take apart old Blackberries that the government used to use 10, 20 years ago.
Right.
Stuff like that.
So how do you reflect on it all? It's
Talking about it,
yeah, but
pretty much.
do you hold like anger towards the government? No.
No.
You just accept it.
Accept it and move on.
Yeah.
You don't like to. You can't minimize your crime and you can't minimize your time, because if I were to minimize my crime and say, oh, I didn't do it, I shouldn't have been guilty, you're basically minimizing and you're wasting the time that you did. I served time. So don't come to me and say, I hate when people do this. They come to me and say, you got a bad deal. You shouldn't have been in prison. Your crime was stupid. I'm like, don't say that. My crime was my crime. I did it. I served my time. So I'm moving on.
I didn't expect to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like when people minimize the crime. I did what I did. I accept it, so you should accept it. I did my time. Don't minimize my time. It's insulting. It's disrespectful.
I hear what you're saying, but without having heard you have said that, I don't feel like you did commit a crime when you did it.
It's your opinion,
Yeah.
and I respect that, But at the end of the day, like, I did time.
Uh-huh.
So by you saying that, you're basically saying, like, you just wasted all those years, and you shouldn't have did that. Now, I came out a better person out of that time.
Okay.
I read a lot of books, and I reflected a lot about who I am. And so I don't look at that time as a waste. I look at that time as like personal development time that I'm happy I did, because I needed that. I needed to become a better person. The quality of my life is a lot better now. So by minimizing the crime, it's saying that whole thing was a big waste.
Would you undo it, or are you kind of glad you've had it?
That's a question I struggle with all the time. If I could undo my prison time, would I? I don't know, because I don't like who I was before. I'm a completely different person now. And if there would be a way for me to become the person I am today by not going to prison, then yeah, I would never do it again. But I don't think that's possible.
Because I was telling you and Courtney over brunch yesterday about my divorce.
Sure.
It's very similar in that it was the most awful experience. I lost nearly 2 to 3 years of my life with depression and feeling shit. The whole thing was awful. My company collapsed. I mean, it was truly dreadful. But I wouldn't be sat here right now doing this interview if that hadn't happened.
There you go.
It set off a chain of events, which meant...
So you don't you regret, or you don't want that to have happened.
No.
But you don't regret, and you like where you are now.
Well, what you said then, I didn't like who I was. I didn't like my job in advertising. I was really overweight. I had a drug problem that eventually got out of hand.
Yeah.
I thought I enjoyed my job because the company was successful, but what I realized I was doing was nothing of benefit. My job now is to travel around the world. My job was, for the last 2 days, was to hang out with you, go out on your boat, interview with you, get to know you, spend time with you. I mean, what an amazing job.
That's the best job.
Yeah, so I wish I hadn't gone through all that, but I don't want to lose this, and I'm in a much better place because of it. So I understand what you're saying.
If there's a better way for you to have gotten to this point you are now, then yeah, you would do it. But at the same time, you like where you are. So I like where I am now.
Sometimes maybe then what we need is something bad to happen to change our lives. It's like a shock to the system for a chance to refresh and reflect. And yeah, it's really interesting to hear you say that.
That's why when parents don't let their kids make mistakes and go through things, that's a problem, because you should let your kids need humility training, especially when you're going from like the 18 to 25-year-old years. You need like a big dose of humility training to like ground you.
Like all the kids at that party yesterday.
Yeah, all the kids at that party yesterday. None of them have been through anything more traumatic than running out of weed one day. Like, that's literally the most traumatic thing they've ever had to deal with.
Yeah.
What trauma did they deal with? Nothing.
Not getting picked for the football team.
Not getting picked for the football
Getting
team. But
dumped.
everything in their life has been handed to them.
Yeah.
And so, if that's how you want to live your life, that's fine. But people in life are going to tell you no. And how you handle that is a big testament to who you are. If you've never been told as a kid, and something that you've actually wanted, and you've never been told no, then how are you going to take it when you're older?
All right, man. I think that's a good point to talk a bit about Bitcoin because we've barely talked about it. So we won't go too far because I think we're both hungry and I've got to set off for San Francisco too. But it would be good to know what you think about the Bitcoin space now because it's obviously very different from 2010.
Sure.
And you've seen it all and you've observed part of it. Well, I guess when you were in prison, were you observing what was going on, or did you have like a year and a half block?
No, I got to basically like my wife would email me some stuff going on, but I didn't want to hear about it.
Yeah, I bet.
Some people wrote me letters and stuff like that, and I have those letters, but I didn't want to hear about what's going on in the crypto world. But
now
I've resigned. Like people have asked me, do you want to start a new company? Do you want to be the CEO? Do you want to be, a thought leader? I'm like, no. There are better people that can do that now. I've done my time in that respect. I've earned my spurs. I'm happy with the legacy that I've created for myself in the crypto world. I'm happy with where I am. And so if I can resign myself to enjoy my life, do a podcast, and then see what else comes along.
But what do you make of the space right now? Because it's very different. There's a lot going on.
Sure. You have just a lot more people, a lot of different types of people. You have good and bad, pretty and ugly, and it's just a different community. I think generally we're still on the right track to achieve that whole payment system that's not controlled by any third party. I think we're on our way for that. There's no term for it. I'm ideologically a Bitcoin maximalist, but in reality, I'm a capitalist too. So I'll trade and buy and sell and advise like different companies and projects as long as they're not outright scams. But I tell these companies straight up, I'm like, yeah, this is a great experiment. I always call them projects. I tell them any project that I advise or I work with, I say it's a project because I said there's a very high likelihood that this is not going to work out as a social experiment long term. So you may exist as a company, you may be profitable, your token holders may make money, whatever. But from a sound money perspective, it's only Bitcoin. Everything else is a scam, especially Ripple.
Especially Ripple.
Ripple is the scam.
I've just been reading this morning about Zcash 2.
Yeah. Zcash, Ycash, all these all scams.
Yeah. I kind of got there. It took me a long time, and I've wrestled with that. Well, it's capitalism. You can't tell somebody not what to do.
That's right. You can be a capitalist, but also be ideologically Bitcoin. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing that people don't realize about capitalism. I hate when someone says, I'm an anarchist, I'm a capitalist, I'm a libertarian. You need to listen to me. You need to only do this. You shouldn't. I'm like, you need to, you shouldn't, you should. All these are like criminal lifestyle terms, like should statements. You're shitting all over yourself. I tell people, that's the whole opposite of you call yourself a voluntarist or a capitalist. That means as long as you're not stealing from someone, I'm allowed to do whatever the hell I want, and you have no right to tell me I can't.
Maybe these scams are stealing from people.
Probably are.
Yeah.
A lot of them are.
So what's going to come up for you next?
I don't know. I want to travel the world.
Where do you want to go?
I want to go everywhere.
There's always places on top of your list though. Like I know there's places I want to go.
Courtney and I have been to like 40 countries already.
So somebody set me a goal once. They said you should always try and go to as many countries as your age and then stay above that number.
Okay, so I'm above that number right now. I've been to about 40 and I'm 30 now. I'm almost 30 now.
That's good.
Yeah, so I got a little bit of a head start, but I love that.
Yeah, so I've done my count. I haven't done it for a while. I need to do it because I went to Norway this year, which was new for me.
Yeah, you have to add that one.
I need to add that in. I think.
Do layovers count? If you don't leave the airport, I don't count it.
So I don't think it does because I never had Dubai and I did a layover there for Mauritius. Okay. But I still experienced the country.
Well, but if you still leave the airport for 8 hours, then you technically have been to that country.
Yeah, of course. But if you're in the airport, kind of technically you get a small experience. I once when we were in when I was traveling around America, driving from Yuma to San Diego, just crossed the border into Mexico just to to add it to the list, which
Yeah.
by the way was a terrible idea. We got stuck in a big traffic jam with all these
Oh yeah,
freaks
the border control is crazy.
and all these weirdos coming up and down by the car. It was horrible. But then I always wrestle: do I include Mexico or not? But I'm
You
below.
should.
I'm below. I'm actually at no, because I don't think I experienced. For me, you got to go and experience the country. So I think I'm at about 37, but I'm 40. And my problem is because I come to
I
America.
want to go back
10
to.
times a year.
I want to be able to freely travel around Europe, like so. I want to be able to go, and just not have a return home ticket. I want to be able to just.
Have you been to Ireland?
No, never been to Ireland.
Got to go to Ireland.
Why?
Well, so part of my ancestry is Irish. My
Okay.
father lives there. I think they're the nicest people in the world.
Probably.
Yeah, they're more the Thai people.
I'd like to go, but I want to go during good weather.
Well, it's Ireland. You
Even
can't
in the
guarantee that.
summertime.
Yeah, but if you go, you've got to let me know, and I'll go and meet you over there.
Okay.
But I'll take you to. You need to go to a place called Galway. The mistake everyone makes is they go to Dublin.
Yeah.
And Dublin's like it's kind of just like New York or London with Irish accents. But you go to Galway, you get to really experience Ireland. Italy, have you been to Italy?
Yeah, we've been there
Great.
5 or 6 times.
Love that. See,
I love Italy. My favorite city in the world is Vienna.
interesting.
Because I've been there so many times, so I feel like I know it. You know, when you go to a city so many times that you feel like you can get your way around. You know the neighborhoods, you know the streets, you know the layout. You pretty much can figure it out. You know, I like that when you travel to a city so much, then you start to know your way around. Like I studied abroad in Florence, Italy, so now whenever we travel back there, I know my way around the city.
Right. Okay.
And that's a big thing when you know your way around a city without having to look at like maps or whatever.
I'm kind of like that with LA.
Yeah, LA, we're getting there. It's still, LA's so big and sprawling though.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. I'd like to go back to Vienna during the winter time because it's really beautiful with the snow and the Christmas, you know, Christmas city. My best friend lives there, and my wife and I have made friends with all of his friends. So we have a nice group of people that we're friends with that are there, which is great.
You've done much of Asia?
When I was younger, I did. I went to Thailand. I
Right.
went to Macau. I've been to China, Hong Kong. I'd like to go to Japan.
Japan's incredible.
Yeah. Hawaii, but that's part of America.
I've got Vietnam and Cambodia, possibly this summer.
Yeah, I kind of do. I want to go to those places, but but at the same time, like, they're not the super top of my list right now.
Right, okay.
I'd like to go to off the beaten path places too. Like we've been to Morocco.
Cool.
I'd like to go. I went to South Africa, the Zambia, Namibia. We were down there, that whole region, Zimbabwe. The southern tip of Africa is great. I highly recommend everyone do that. We did that. I don't know. I want to do Europe a little bit more. I'd like to do the Trans-Siberian Railroad travel. I want to go to Russia. Court, where do you want to go? Let's go to Hawaii. That's in America, though.
My kids
What I
wanna go
really
there.
want to do is I want to go to like the Virgin Islands and like rent a yacht and travel around.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
That's life goals.
yeah, that's what I want to do too.
All right, man. Well, listen, look. Thank you for the invite over. Thank you for having me in your house.
Thank you for coming. It was our pleasure.
Yeah, it was great. It was in some ways, it's probably my most enjoyable interview.
Thank
I
you.
kinda
You say that to everyone though.
No, I don't. I do say I have a lot that I enjoy, but
Yeah.
I think what happens is I see this as a craft, as a career, and something I'm trying to forge and get better at. And coming and spending a couple of days with a guest before an
Yeah.
interview, I think it changes it. It changes the way I approach it, and it gives me new questions. It gives me new considerations. And it makes me almost want to do. There's certain other people I'm going to want to interview and do it
Sure.
like this and go and spend more time with them. But
It's a nice place here.
it's cool. But thank you to your beautiful wife as well for having me
course.
in. Your lovely but annoying dog for jumping on me constantly and licking my feet. For taking me out and meeting your friends, and just for all your hospitality. It's
course,
been
thank you.
amazing. I do consider you a friend now.
Thank you. I think I do too. Thank you. Let's go eat some breakfast.
Yeah, let's go get some breakfast. Thanks, man. Take care.
Okay, what did you make of that? Pretty fascinating, right? So I'll try and keep this as short as possible because it's a long interview. I did a long intro, but I think this was also my longest interview yet. But it's a great story. There was so much to talk about. And you know what? There's a bunch of stuff we didn't get into, and I without doubt will record with Charlie again one day. Surprisingly, we ended up not talking about Bitcoin too much because there was so much other stuff to talk about related to his sentence and imprisonment and what happened and how he felt. But it was really cool to see Charlie so relaxed, after spending 18 months in prison and then 3 years on parole, and seeing how he reflects on it is really interesting, especially his response to people who thinks he didn't deserve it. He thinks that takes something away from him. He served his time, and that's important to him. And a lot of this aligns with some of the things I discussed with Lynn Ulbrich about the US prison system and the impact on Ross and some of the weird ways the US prison system works. And it was great to meet and talk to Courtney and hear her side of the story. It's only a short part of the interview, and it was very emotional, but it was really good to hear her. And I just want to say a massive thanks to them. Their hospitality was amazing. I stayed at their house. They really looked after me for a couple of days, had so much fun. And yeah, I've probably become friends for life. So yeah, big thanks, Charlie, Courtney, Crazy Dog. Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the interview. If you do want to discuss it and reach out to me, my email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com. I'm not going to do all the stuff about how you can support the show. I do it every week. If you want to listen to that for some God knows reason, you can go check out an old show. But if you are interested, there's a section on my website, whatbitcoindid.com. Click on the sports section. That'll tell you that. Yeah, my US trip is on to the final couple of legs. Like I say, down to LA, then I'm off to Boulder, Chicago, then Boston and home. So a few more interviews to do, then back to England before planning my next journey out here. Anyway, thank you to everyone who supports the show. Love you all. See you later.